Chapter 760. The soaring serpent mansion Swo Guangyuan is here. The eyes of the surrounding cultivators immediately lit up. Now that Swo Guangyuan was here, it would not be so easy for Yun Feiyang to obtain the painting piece. With the two tigers fighting, their chance had finally arrived. Bang! 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 The group of half-sage elders from the soaring serpent mansion pushed through the crowd and rushed over to support Swo Guangyuan. When Yun Feiyang saw Swo Guangyuan falling down in a sorry state, he mocked, "Brother Swo, you are very capable. You nearly managed to grab the painting piece." Yun Feiyang emphasized the word nearly, making Swo Guangyuan's expression turn unsightly. Unfortunately, it was nearly. This painting piece was prepared for me, Yun Feiyang. A venomous, sinister look flashed in Swo Guangyuan's eyes. He said in a cold voice, "You are too delusional." Hu Qi. Just at this moment, the emperor painting fragment floating in the air was suddenly pulled over by a huge suction force. The emperor's might contained in the painting piece was mostly nullified by that suction. Then, the painting piece appeared before the person who made a move. Xiao Chen's expression turned grave and stern. He circulated all his quintessence, vital qi, and mental energy, as well as the sovereign's qi in his bloodline at the same time. Xiao Chen's aura soared. His black hair fluttered everywhere, and his white robes fluttered. Suddenly, he attracted everyone's attention. He stretched his hand forward and grabbed the dazzling emperor map fragment. With a buzz, he caught it in his hand. Boom! Surging energy surged out of Xiao Chen's palm, forming a strong wind that swept through the surroundings. The wind howled, sounding like a vast army galloping. The surroundings of the grave passage trembled violently. Several people could not stand stably and nearly fell. Everyone looked at Xiao Chen incredulously. Where exactly did this person come from? Not only did he know all the hidden rooms of the grave palace, but he also knew about them. Not only did he know the various hidden rooms of the grave palace, but he also held the painting piece firmly in his hand, something that Yun Feiyang and Swo Guangyuan could not easily suppress. Xiao Chen withdrew the painting piece with a flip of his palm and placed it in his universe ring. "You are seeking death. How dare you snatch what belongs to me, Yun Feiyang? Reckless fool." Swo Guangyuan and Yun Feiyang could not hold themselves back anymore. How could they let someone else obtain the treasure that they wanted? Then, they leaped up and charged at Xiao Chen together, radiating killing qi. Such a scene immediately shocked everyone. They thought that the two of them would fight fiercely, but they actually joined hands to attack the same person. However, what astonished them even more was to come. Suddenly, a majestic and resonant holy song rang out from the palace grave. Xiao Chen, who was surrounded by the holy song, stepped forward and punched. The golden light poured out like a heavy weight. Yun Feiyang and Swo Guangyuan, who were surging with murderous qi, both grunted as Xiao Chen knocked them back with one punch. How is this possible? The top true inheritors of the Heavenly Tiger sect and the Soaring Serpent Mansion were actually sent flying with a single punch. The cultivators waiting at the side to take advantage of the situation were all startled. The expressions of the half-sage elders of the two sects changed drastically. They stopped hesitating and attacked. In that instant, strong winds blew in the air. 10 odd figures burst out with martial techniques of all sorts, charging at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. If it were in the past, he would not have dared to be careless when facing 10 odd half-sages who were as strong as Gumu. However, now that his physical body had reached rank 2 sage body, he had consumed the dragon marrow to form an internal defense, and he had refined the sage-grade defensive pagoda. No matter how many clowns there was no need to fear them. An image of a pagoda encased Xiao Chen. With a thought, his mental energy and veritable essence energy poured into the pagoda like a river. The illusory pagoda immediately materialized at a visible pace. Eventually, it looked like a supreme pagoda standing there, unafraid of wind and rain, unafraid of mountains and rivers. Dang! 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 The attacks of 10 odd half-sages struck the pagoda, producing loud bangs that resounded endlessly. Waves of chi spread out, forming a terrifying gust of wind that swept through the tomb. When the strong winds scattered and the shock waves vanished, the 10 odd half-sages were shocked to discover that Xiao Chen was unharmed in the pagoda, looking at them expressionlessly. "Get the hell down here." A light flashed, and the sage-grade pagoda returned to Xiao Chen's body, merging with his flesh and blood. Xiao Chen shouted ferociously and soared into the air, bringing out the radiance of a deity. Xiao Chen's fist shone with a light like that of a small sun, forming an unparalleled, majestic pillar of light that shot out. The 10 odd half-sage elders in the air all vomited a mouthful of blood. They cried out miserably as they fell from the sky. When Yun Feiyang and Zhuo Guangyuan, who were on the ground, saw this scene, horror filled their eyes. They both muttered to themselves and wanted to reveal their true forms at the same time. If a fiend race cultivator revealed their true form, their strength would increase by at least 50%, making them very difficult to deal with. Xiao Chen smiled coldly. How could he give them such an opportunity? Ka Xie. Ka Xie. Golden chains appeared behind him. Divine scripts circulated around them, releasing a mighty pressure. Xiao Chen punched the air, and the chains danced around like berserk dragons. Whoosh! The chains wrapped around the two. The divine scripts on the chains contained a strangely strong sealing power, suppressing the surging auras in the two's bodies. The two's complexions flushed, and their eyes glared with rage. No matter how they struggled, they could not move at all. Their strength slowly decreased, and after a while, they were like ordinary people. When Xiao Chen landed, he casually waved his hand, and a cool breeze formed by quintessence gently blew the two off the ground, sending them crashing into a wall. With the strength of one person, Xiao Chen easily defeated the top true inheritors of two great sects and a group of half-sage elders. Xiao Chen swept his gaze around, and the cultivators who remained there were all frightened out of their wits. They immediately scattered, fleeing frantically. "Congratulations, young Master Xiao. You displayed your might and obtained a painting piece." After the battle ended, Nangong Qiong appeared from somewhere. She had a faint smile on her face as she spoke. Xiao Chen was already numb to Nangong Qiong's attitude. There was no need to rely on her to help at any time. Just treat her as heir. "Right, as long as she is heir, I will not get angry if I can't see her." Xiao Chen glanced at Yun Feiyang and Xiao Chen, who had failed to reveal their true forms and were sealed by the divine chains, and walked over. The two were severely injured. They found it difficult to even stand up for now. The divine chains sealed their strength. If the seal did not last for long, they would be no different from ordinary people. Xiao Chen ignored the two's curses and their childish threats. He directly took the two's spatial rings and took all the astral coins and peak superior grade secret treasures. After that, they continued forward. With Nangong Qiong leading the way, Xiao Chen only needed to follow behind her, saving him a lot of trouble. Advancing stealthily, Zhang Xian passed through several corridors. Regardless of whether it was a hidden chamber or a room that existed publicly, most of them were empty. Unexpectedly, aside from the painting pieces, there was nothing in the grave palace of the Heavenly Rock King. This was simply inexcusable. Something's wrong. Why are there no treasures in the secret rooms? Nangong Qiong asked after walking for a long time. She frowned slightly and stopped. Nangong Qiong had two goals in coming here. One was to enter the core hall and take away the core painting piece of the Great Rock Spreading Wings painting. The second was to find the treasures hidden in the various secret rooms. As a sovereign martial emperor, the Heavenly Rock King's former residence would definitely have many precious treasures. If she could obtain them all, the accumulated value would be much higher than the core painting piece. When Xiao Chen saw Nangong Qiong stop, he asked, "What's wrong?" "Someone probably got ahead of us." The Heavenly Rock Race's people probably do not care about the painting pieces. Their goal is to obtain the treasures left behind by the Heavenly Rock King. They used the painting pieces to attract the attention of others and obtained the treasures in the Grave Palace. Then, they stayed out of the matter. This is indeed a brilliant plan. Nangong Cheong spoke of her guesses. Right now, the heavenly rock race had already declined to the point of extinction. They did not even have a martial sage. Although the heavenly rock race had many people, in reality, it was hard to say who would win if they fought with the people who came. Let's go. Let's not waste time here. Let's go directly to the Grave Palace's Eternal Rest Hall. Hopefully, nothing unexpected has happened to the core painting piece. Many hidden doors opened on the top floor of the vast Grave Palace. The figures of the heavenly rock race cultivators leaped out of them. Then, they quickly landed on the ground, distancing themselves from the Grave Palace. As the figures came over and presented the treasures they obtained in the Grave Palace, the three old men leading the group revealed increasingly joyful expressions. There are more than 10,000 superior-grade spirit-gathering pearls, 50 million astral coins, more than 100 sage-grade secret treasures, close to 5,000 superior-grade secret treasures, and more than 10,000 spirit weapons and treasure armor. There are more than 3,000 bottles of grade 8 medicinal pills and more than 100 bottles of sage medicinal pills. Patriarch, with these resources, it won't be long before our Sky Rock race rises again. The Sky Rock race's patriarch, Ming Fan, smiled and said, "It's worth it. We used 49 low-grade rank 1 spirit veins in exchange for so many resources. It's enough for our Sky Rock race to use for 500 years. The gray-robed elder on the right said, "Now it all depends on young Master Mingyu. If he can successfully obtain the core map fragment, then this mission will come to a perfect conclusion." Junior tribe leader, that's too risky. There are quite a few demon-level geniuses that came this time. Even us old bones are afraid of them, said the old man on the left worriedly. Ming Fan sighed and said in a low voice, "This is his own choice. Right now, Kunlun is in the golden age of 10,000 years. He is very proud and does not want to be buried as a spectator. He can only take a gamble." The elder on the right said, "Patriarch, Old Lu and the others have yet to come out after collecting the heavenly ice sword. Could they have met with some trouble?" Ming Fan muttered, "Never mind. The heavenly ice sword is not hidden at all. I do not have much hope. Let's go. We should quit while we're ahead. If others discover us, we will be in big trouble." Ming Fan was very cautious. He carefully put away the resources that he had and quickly led the heavenly rock race cultivators away from this place. Inside the Grave Palace, Xiao Chen and Nangong Cheong did not take any detours and headed straight ahead. 1 hour later, horrifying miserable cries came from the corner of the grave entrance. The heavy stench of blood in the enclosed space was unbearable. Chapter 761. Xiao Chen frowned and turned his head to take a look. A large number of cultivators gathered at the exit of the passageway, fighting a spider-like ferocious beast with an extremely strange aura. This ferocious beast was described as strange because although Xiao Chen could feel the horrifying aura coming from it, he could not sense any life force at all. Interesting. It is actually a demonic puppet refined from an astral venom spider. I want this demonic puppet. When Nangong Cheong saw this ferocious beast, her bright eyes immediately revealed a trace of joy. She casually waved her hand, and an elegant wooden umbrella appeared in her hand. The plain-looking umbrella gave off an ancient aura. Xiao Chen looked carefully and discovered several hundred arm-thick heavenly sage laws around the umbrella. A high-quality sage-grade secret treasure. Xiao Chen's pupils constricted, an intense shock flashed in his eyes. This girl was really mysterious. She could casually take out a high-quality sage-grade secret treasure. Xiao Chen, be careful. Don't get betrayed by this girl. If I guessed correctly, she is definitely from a sovereign noble clan. Her name might be a fake, Ao Jiao warned from the immortal spirit ring. Xiao Chen nodded and said calmly, "Don't worry. I have not used the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram or the strength character formula. After all, she is not a martial sage. I still have some trump cards against her." Nangong Cheong left very quickly and returned very quickly as well. In less than 15 minutes, she returned to Xiao Chen's side. An exquisite astral venom spider appeared in her palm like a doll. After she put it away, she smiled and said, "Let's go. There seems to be a treasure in front that the heavenly rock race's people did not take away." No wonder this group of people is so stubborn despite the obstruction of the astral venom spider. Hearing that there was a treasure, Xiaochen took the lead. After passing through the entrance, the scene before him suddenly widened. A vast palace with grand decorations appeared before Xiaochen. The cultivators that came from the various entrances all gathered here. Aside from the true inheritors of the 6 factions, the fiend race geniuses that Nangong Qiong paid special attention to, the little heavenly monkey Feng and the silver moon spirit fox Xianyu, were also here. However, it was very quiet at this moment. Heroes from all over had gathered together, but no one made a sound. The atmosphere was so quiet that it was a little strange. In the center of the palace, there was a towering stone platform. On top of the stone platform, there was a pitch-black sword that exuded a chilling aura and a restrained brilliance. It was obvious that it was not an ordinary sword. Heavenly Ice Sword. Nangong Qiong exclaimed softly. Then, she came to a sudden realization and said, "So that's how it is. No wonder Yan Shisan would travel such a great distance to come here. I knew it. He mainly cultivates the massacre sword Dao. How could the map fragment be so attractive to him?" The heavenly ice sword was forged by the heavenly rock king using the source of the heavenly ice star. Unfortunately, after it was forged, it lacked a bit of spirituality. Heavenly Rock King was greatly disappointed. He had always shelved it, never using it. The Heavenly Rock King did not think much of this sword, but in the eyes of others, it was a peerless treasure. As long as it could nurture an artifact spirit, it would become a high-grade subdivine weapon. A fragment of a subdivine weapon of the Thunder King was able to attract the attention of a martial sage of Hunluo City. Now, as long as it was nurtured properly, it could definitely become a subdivine weapon. Naturally, it went without saying how attractive it was. Everyone wanted to obtain the heavenly ice sword. However, no one dared to act rashly. The normally arrogant geniuses all became cautious. Everyone knew that the bird that poked its head out would be shot. If they acted rashly now, they would definitely offend everyone and become the target of everyone's attacks. Everyone was waiting for a chaotic situation so that they could make their move amidst the chaos. Hu Qi. Amid this strange and quiet atmosphere, a black figure gently drifted over. This person did not care about the murderous gazes of the others as he casually stood on the stone platform. This was a slender, young swordsman in black with a stern expression. This was the person that Nangong Qiong feared the most, Yan Shisan. While the many geniuses did not dare to provoke the crowd and waited quietly, the black-clad swordsman calmly stood on the stone platform. Not bad. This is a good sword. I want it. The many geniuses stared at the black-clad swordsman with murderous intent. However, Yan Shisan ignored them. He stretched out his hand to grab the pitch-black sword hilt. Where did this nameless brat come from? How dare he speak nonsense here? The heavenly ice sword is the treasure of our heavenly rock race. No one is allowed to snatch it. Yan Shisan was not very famous here. Or rather, he was too famous. Without reaching a certain level, one would not know of his origins. Seeing that Yan Shisan was going to grab the heavenly ice sword, the 3 half-sage old men of the heavenly rock race immediately became enraged and quickly revealed their true forms. The bones on their backs wiggled, and a pair of heavenly rock wings unfurled. The wings flapped ferociously, kicking up a strong wind. The 3 old men charged at Yan Shisan like a bolt of lightning with a towering flame burning in their eyes. Yan Shisan's eyebrows twitched. He had not expected these 3 heavenly rock race old men to be dissatisfied with him taking the heavenly ice sword. Since you do not practice the sword, what is the point of having a sword? The greedy usually die the fastest. Yan Shisan did not move at all. He glanced around and moved his fingers slightly. The buzzing of countless swords came from the air, linking together as if there were countless swords hidden in the air. A strong and pure sword intent flowed everywhere in the air, forming a torrent of formless blades. The entire hall started trembling continuously. The swords in the hands of several cultivators were about to fly out uncontrollably, causing these cultivators to panic. "This is a peak great perfection sword intent," someone exclaimed in disbelief, revealing a horrified expression. A peak great perfection sword intent was already infinitely close to perfection, able to condense a sword's soul at any time. This was something that several martial sages, who had lived for 100 years, could not do. Unexpectedly, this youth did it. Suddenly, Yan Shisan stopped moving his fingers, and the hidden swords in the air all stopped buzzing. The torrent of swords flowing everywhere also stopped moving at this moment. Everything fell silent. Not a single sound could be heard. The huge difference seemed to cause others to have the misconception that the powerful and vast sword intent at the advanced stage earlier was not real. Just as these doubts appeared in everyone's mind, Yan Shisan made his move and gently waved his hand. Boom! Countless crisp sounds connected together, forming a rumbling sound that resembled a tidal wave. The countless swords hidden in the void all stabbed out at the same time. They gathered together and formed a berserk dragon made of swords. The body of the berserk dragon hummed with thousands of swords, and a boundless state of massacre spread out from it. Bang! The massacre berserk dragon howled as it flew by. The various martial techniques executed by the 3 heavenly rock race cultivators, who had revealed their true forms, vanished like smoke. Sword lights shot out, and a scarlet light spread everywhere. Before the 3 old men could scream, they were sliced into countless spurts of blood. The blood infused into the berserk dragon. A faint layer of blood mist dyed the berserk dragon made of sword lights, making it look like a blood dragon with overwhelming killing chi. Yan Shisan casually waved his hand and killed 3 half-sages. The entire hall fell silent, dumbfounded. What exactly is this fellow's background? The Yen clan was a hidden sovereign noble clan. Ordinary people would not know of such a clan. When facing the horrifying Yan Shisan, everyone thought hard but could not figure out where such an expert came from. Acting all mysterious. "I, Wang Ying, will test you out." A sinister wind blew and carried a figure towards Yan Shisan. It was Teng Peng, the top true inheritor of the Blood Shadow sect, one of the 6 great sects of Hunluo province. When Yan Shisan saw Teng Peng in the sinister wind, he raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "Interesting. There is finally someone using the sword, even though he does not cultivate the righteous Tao." Yan Shisan grasped his sword hilt with his right hand, not drawing his sword. He pointed forward, and a dense black sword chi immediately shot out from the scabbard, moving as fast as a meteor. The sword chi contained the massacre sword Dao that could destroy everything. Everywhere it passed, even the air seemed to lose its life force and wither. Ka Xie. The sword chi easily tore through the sinister wind, piercing through Teng Peng's protective quintessence and the superior grade inner vest he wore before piercing through his body. The black sword chi spread out with a surging state of massacre. No matter how Teng Peng blocked, he could not suppress the aura of massacre that could destroy everything. Teng Peng's complexion was as pale as paper. The sinister wind around him scattered, and he appeared fatigued and lifeless. Unexpectedly, not only did this sword strike injure his physical body, but the sword chi containing the massacre Dao even injured his life force. Young Master. The Blood Shadow sect's half-sage, Old Zhao, showed a startled expression as he quickly flew over and caught Teng Peng. Attack together. The few half-sage elders all showed furious expressions as they charged at Yan Shisan. The Bone Mausoleum Hall's Wang Ying and the magnificent Fiend Hall's Xiang Fei hesitated for a moment before leading their half-sage elders over as well. If they did not attack now and were defeated by Yan Shisan, they would no longer have a chance to obtain the Heavenly Ice Sword. Yan Shisan smiled faintly as he looked at the 20-odd half-sages flying over, not showing any fear. He did not even draw his black sword, just casually brandishing it. Buzz! 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 Yan Shisan's veritable essence energy surged, and the scabbard danced. Under his guidance, berserk dragons made of the massacred Tao surged in all directions. The swords buzzed endlessly in the hall, sounding like a flowing waterfall. A strong wind howled and shook the surroundings. The various half-sages could not even block the berserk sword dragons, much less approach Yan Shisan. He fought against so many half-step saints all by himself, and he didn't even have to draw his sword. Xiao Chen appeared slightly stunned. This fellow is really strong. Of the 7 giants, only Juanshi can compete with him. If Xiao Chen can put some distance between them, his first senior sister might have a chance of victory. As for the other giants, if they did not have any fortuitous encounters in the past few months, none of them would be a match for him. No wonder that Nangong Qiong treated him as her greatest opponent. Xiao Chen thought, fortunately, I practice the saber and not the sword. There is no need to fight with this person. Otherwise, I would have to expose all my trump cards. No swordsman could resist the temptation of the heavenly ice sword. If Xiao Chen practiced the sword, no matter how strong Yan Shisan was, he would fight for it. Even if he could not defeat Yan Shisan, he would do his best. Otherwise, it would be hard to avoid regret. A powerful treasure sword was not something one could come across at any time. Chapter 762. As the half-sages fell one by one, the berserk sword dragons slowly vanished, and the hall regained its calm. The eyes of the injured half-sages on the ground and Yan Shisan, who stood with his hands behind his back on the sovereign's stone platform, flashed with unconcealable horror. Bai, you use the sword. I'll help you snatch this heavenly ice sword. Xian Yu could tell that Bai was tempted, so he smiled gently and said gently. If Xiao Chen could help her obtain the heavenly ice sword now, he would definitely be able to capture her heart in one go. When Xian Yu's second uncle heard this, his expression changed drastically. Bai could not help but frown deeply. When he saw that Xian Yu was about to make a move, he said anxiously, there's no need. I'll go and get it myself. Seeing Bai fly out first, Jiang Zimo and Mu Xinya quickly followed. Xian Yu's expression changed slightly. He had not expected that Bai would personally make a move for the sake of not appreciating his kindness. Xian Yu snorted coldly and was about to get up. Don't be rash. This person is Yan Shisan, the demonic genius of a sovereign noble clan. You are not a match for him. Xian Yu's second uncle quickly made a move to stop him. Then, he told him about the horrors of a sovereign noble clan. After Xian Yu heard the other party's explanation, his expression changed, and he slowly stopped himself from making a move. The massacre sword Dao. If my life's origin is injured, my future will be ruined. Xiao Chen, who was originally planning to watch the show, suddenly saw a familiar figure fly out from the crowd. He was stunned and smiled bitterly helplessly. Back then, I really should not have let her walk the sword Dao. Xiao Chen pushed off the ground and wrote a blue dragon image. Then, he soared into the sky, intending to block Bai. Yan Shisan's massacre sword Dao was clearly different from the state of massacre of regular cultivators. It was an extremely pure Dao of massacre. Using massacre as a sword, it could destroy everything, destroying all life force. If one's origin was accidentally injured, it would not be something that could be healed in a few days. A dragon roar resounded in all directions. Riding the dragon, Xiao Chen leaped up and instantly arrived before Bai, Jiang Zimo, and Mu Xinya. Yan Shisan stood with his hands behind his back on the 100-meter-tall stone platform in front. He did not do anything, but the berserk dragons formed by the 3 massacring swords circled around him. As soon as he saw someone coming over, he immediately shouted and rushed over. Kill, 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 kill. Xiao Chen faced the berserk dragon formed by the 3 massacring swords head-on. He personally experienced the state of massacre contained in the swords. The tens of thousands of swords clashed in front of him. Every single sword was ferocious, like a ferocious beast baring its fangs. They roared madly, and their voices converged together. They condensed into tens of thousands of kill characters, rising and falling like the tide, pouring into Xiao Chen's mind, throwing his mind into chaos and giving rise to a chill. Xiao Chen finally understood. When those half-sages faced the berserk dragons formed by the swords, they found it very difficult to deal with them. In the end, they all lost. It was not that they were too weak. Rather, it was that this Yan Shisan was too strong. The momentum of the massacre sword Dao was too strong. It could kill everything in the world, destroying all life force. As long as one's mental state and mental energy were not as strong as Yan Shisan's, they would be like pigs before him, swallowed up by the cold and emotionless massacre sword Dao. No matter how strong one's quintessence was, how many martial techniques, or how many secret treasures one had, if one could not bring out even 70% of one's strength, defeat would be a matter of seconds. Xiao Chen roared, and the mental energy in his sea of consciousness surged like a river. As the waves surged, they chased the kill characters out of his mind. Xiao Chen recovered his mental state, and his eyes lit up. A sagely song rang out, echoing in the hall. The sagely song recounted a distant legend. Every time it resounded, history spun, and the ancient epic became even more profound. Essence, qi, and spirit, these three energies merged at the same time. The strength that he grasped also increased rapidly as he watched the three berserk sword dragons fly over. As he looked at the three berserk sword dragons, Xiao Chen took a step forward, not retreating. Instead, he charged forward and punched. Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, Distant Legend. A bright, resplendent, and dazzling light condensed into something solid, looking like ink as it shot out. The light clashed with the berserk-killing dragons formed by thousands of swords. Heavy sounds reverberated in the hall. Every strand of light and the killing swords fought to the death, like two armies of 10,000 fighting an intense battle on the battlefield. War songs rang out, and a scarlet light spread out like mist. The intense battle gave off horrifying auras that flew everywhere, giving off loud explosions on the ground. The entire hall started trembling intensely. It was like a flash flood or a snowy mountain collapsing. At this critical moment, if one did not flee for their lives, they would suffer a calamity. This was the Heavenly Rock King's Star Grave Palace. Naturally, there would not be a flash flood or a snowy mountain. It was just an atmosphere created by the fight between the two. Several people showed grave expressions as they looked at the two in the air. Horror flickered in their eyes. What kind of demonic genius was this? A fight under martial sage could create such a horrifying atmosphere, deterring people from watching. When everything cleared up and the wind blew over, everyone looked into the distance. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen blocked Yan Shisan's horrifying berserk sword dragons. The massacring berserk sword dragons that terrified the many half-sages and caused them to lose in seconds were blasted into nothingness for the first time. In a head-on clash, they were evenly matched. It's him, the white-robed bladesman Xiao Chen. Amid the chaos, several people recognized Xiao Chen's appearance. Back then, when he shouted a command in Hunluo City, he forced the evil man Wu Yuankai to retreat. Xiao Chen's name spread throughout Hunluo City. Most of the cultivators here were from Hunluo province. After thinking for a while, they recalled Xiao Chen's identity and origins. When they saw that Xiao Chen was actually able to go against Yan Shisan, they couldn't help but be shocked, and they concentrated their attention and watched. Bai's pure and charming face was filled with joy. Tears welled up at the corners of her eyes, and she could not help wanting to rush forward and hug Xiao Chen. Don't move. Stand behind me. I'll teach you a lesson later. Do you know how dangerous it was earlier? A familiar voice rang out. Bai showed a bitter expression, feeling somewhat wronged. However, she still obediently took 100 steps back with Mu Xinya and Jiang Zimo. When Xian Yu, who was in the crowd, saw this scene, he had interacted with Bai for a long time. However, he had never seen Bai so obedient before. Jealousy blazed in his heart. I'll let you show off. After Yan Shisan severely injures you, I'll humiliate you ruthlessly, Xian Yu thought to himself as he glanced at Xiao Chen. The black-robed Yen Shursan stood on the stone platform with the heavenly ice sword stuck in it. He stood as straight as a spear, not moving at all. His stern face did not show any expression. Aside from coldness, there was only coldness. Since you are a Blades man, why the need to use the deity race's unorthodox Tao? Yen Shursan narrowed his eyes, and rage flashed in them. His gaze was like a sharp knife stabbing at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smiled bitterly to himself. This person probably misunderstood, thinking that Xiao Chen underestimated him. Not only did Xiao Chen not draw his saber, but he even used unorthodox Tao to deal with him. However, Xiao Chen's current situation was that the myriad heaven divine fist merged three kinds of energy. In reality, it already surpassed the original myriad heaven divine fist. It was not much weaker than Xiao Chen's saber techniques. In terms of explosive power and destructive power, the myriad heaven divine fist was even stronger. However, since Yen Shursan said that, Xiao Chen had no intention of letting Yen Shursan continue misunderstanding. If he drew his saber, so be it. In the past few days, Xiao Chen had been practicing the Qing Emperor's drawing the saber. Now, he could instantly send out 81 different trajectories. The other party had a peak great perfection sword intent, and Xiao Chen's saber intent had reached 70% comprehension. Saber intent was innately stronger than sword intent. Although Xiao Chen's cultivation realm was weaker, it would not immediately crumble. Holding the lunar shadow saber, Xiao Chen rode on the blue dragon and slowly grasped the saber hilt with his right hand. The saber technique immediately merged with Xiao Chen's state in the surroundings, encasing Yen Shursan. At first, Yen Shursan did not care. Then, his eyes lit up, and his expression slowly turned grave. Unexpectedly, he could not make out the trajectory and position of Xiao Chen's attack. Figures of Xiao Chen holding the saber filled the air. Front, left, right, up, down, it seemed like there was no place where he could draw his saber. Interesting. However, before strong strength, no matter how good a technique is, it is useless. Yen Shursan nodded to himself. He admitted that his drawing the saber was not as good as Xiao Chen's. However, he did not care too much. The absolute difference in strength was too great. Xiao Chen could not use this advantage to finish him off in one move. As long as Xiao Chen could not finish him off in one move, Yen Shursan would be able to do so in an instant. In his opinion, Xiao Chen had only one chance. When Nangong Qiong, who was at the entrance of the distant palace, saw that the two were about to fight, she could not help but feel confused. This Xiao Chen is really worrisome. He looks very gentle and quiet, but when he sees a beautiful woman, he goes completely crazy, daring to offend anyone. That's not right. This young lady believes herself to be an outstanding beauty, no weaker than that little fox. Why is he not reacting to me? Pft. 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 What am I thinking? I have to stop them. Otherwise, when we reach the core of the palace, Xiao Chen will not have the strength to help me open the stone steel. Just as Yen Shursan's hand was about to touch his sword hilt, a simple and unadorned wooden umbrella arrived. Nangong Qiong held the umbrella handle and smiled faintly as she appeared beside Xiao Chen. Young Master Shursan, it has been a long time. When Yen Shursan saw Nangong Qiong appear, he was clearly startled. Furthermore, she walked over to Xiao Chen. He sent a voice projection, "Ying Qiong, you want to help him? Don't worry about it. In any case, you cannot fight with this person now. Just take your heavenly ice sword and leave." The two quickly exchanged a few words. Then, Yen Shursan glanced at Bai, who was behind Xiao Chen. Then, he entered deep thought. Then, he gently tossed his black sword forward. Yen Shursan said calmly, "My Yen clan does not lack subdivine weapons. However, this heavenly ice sword is the most compatible with my killing sword Dao, so I have to obtain it. The sword in my hand is called Snow Feather. In terms of material, craftsmanship, and charm, it is no weaker than the heavenly ice sword. In another 5 years, it will definitely become a subdivine weapon." I'll give it to the young lady behind you. Yan Shisan gently tossed the snow feather sword, and strands of black light peeled off like paint. This was the killing chi that Yan Shisan had tempered on it for many years. When the black light scattered, the snow feather sword returned to its original appearance. It was as white as snow, untainted by dust, and its cold light was withdrawn. Xiaochen received the snow feather sword and looked at Yan Shisan. Then, he looked at Nangong Qiong, who was feigning ignorance, and he seemed to understand something. Chapter 763. However, Xiaochen was even more shocked at Nangong Qiong's identity. To think that she could make the proud and unfathomable Yan Shisan make such a concession. Since you already condensed the sword heart, I believe you will not bury the snow feather sword. Its glory will be on you from now on. Yan Shisan did not say anything more. He grasped the heavenly ice sword's hilt and looked coldly at the surrounding crowd, like he was asking if anyone was still unconvinced. After seeing Yan Shisan's strength, who would dare to seek trouble? They all avoided his gaze, not daring to meet his eyes. Boom! Yan Shisan drew the heavenly ice sword and soared into the sky. He sent out a massacring sword light and broke through the roof of the palace. Yan Shisan's figure flickered, and he turned into a beam of black light, vanishing from this place. Just when everyone thought that there would be peace for a while, the stone platform with the heavenly ice sword in it exploded into dust. Clumps of dazzling light shot out as the stone platform crumbled. They were like majestic heavenly rocks spreading their wings and soaring into the sky. The light was dazzling, more than 100 of them. A vast emperors might layered over each other and spread throughout the vast palace, making breathing difficult. An emperor painting piece. It really is a painting piece of the great rock spreading wings. There are so many painting pieces. We struck it rich. After a moment of silence, all the cultivators in the hall roared crazily, causing a commotion in the crowd. The impatient cultivators leaped into the air and reached out to grab the painting pieces. Bang! 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 Miserable cries rang out. Not only did people get injured by the energy contained in the painting pieces, but they were also injured by sneak attacks. The entire place turned chaotic. Nangong Qiong said softly, "Along the way, we only found one painting piece. So, they were all hidden here." Xiaochen frowned slightly as he looked at the chaotic scene. He did not know if Yan Shisan expected such a thing to happen after he left. However, even if he did, given Yan Shisan's character, he would not change his mind for these painting pieces. After retreating to the back with Bai's group, Xiaochen handed the snow feather sword to Bai and said, "Brother Jiang, Miss Mu, Bai will be in your care." Jiang Zimo nodded and said, "Brother Xiao, don't worry. You should be careful as well." Bai knew what Xiaochen meant. He wanted to protect her. She hated herself for not living up to his expectations. Brother Xiaochen was worried about her. Xiaochen smiled faintly and did not say anything more. He turned around and left on his dragon, joining the group fighting for the map fragments. Xiaochen's cultivation was still lingering around late-stage superior-grade martial monarch. This painting piece was very important to him. This might be his opportunity to become a half-saint, so he had to fight for it. Looking around, the two most eye-catching people in the sky were undoubtedly the little heavenly monkey Feng and the silver moon spirit fox races Xianyu. Those who fought with them for the map pieces all ended up in a miserable state. In a short period of time, the two of them had already snatched 5 or 6 map fragments, sending quite a few ignorant people flying. Xiaochen stood like a soaring dragon, looking at the dazzling map fragments dancing in the sky. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and firmly grabbed a map fragment that flew past him. A strong shockwave surged out, knocking away the nearby cultivators. Even the little heavenly monkey Feng needed at least 3 attempts before he could completely subdue a map fragment. Xiaochen used his full power, using both his mental energy and quintessence at the same time to succeed on his first try. Boom! 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 Shock waves surged endlessly. Xiaochen quickly made his move, succeeding 10 times out of 10. In a few breaths, he caught up to Xian Yu and the little heavenly monkey. After a while, Xiaochen obtained 20 map fragments. The little heavenly monkey and Xian Yu combined did not even reach half of Xiaochen's. Such a ferocious display finally attracted everyone's attention. They were dumbfounded as they watched Xiaochen harvest the map fragments in an extremely tyrannical manner. This is too monstrous. Is he even going to let us live? Damn it! From the looks of it, he is going to snatch away at least half of the map fragments. The originally chaotic scene of a chaotic fight between experts now turned into Xiaochen's solo performance. No one could stop him from harvesting the map fragments. The little heavenly monkey's pearl-like eyes revealed a strange chill. This fellow is too exaggerated. Hu Qi. Xian Yu, who had long found Xiaochen an eyesore, snorted coldly. While Xiaochen was not paying attention, he quickly flew towards him and stretched out his hand, trying to snatch a map fragment behind him. Xiaochen smiled coldly. Without even turning around, he grabbed the painting piece with the backhand of his hand. At the same time, he made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and a surging shock wave burst out as he caught a painting piece that was flying over. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen grabbed 2 map fragments at the same time. Emperor's might spread out. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his white robes fluttered. His entire being radiated an unstoppable sharpness. Xian Yu, who originally thought that he would definitely succeed, ended up grabbing nothing. The expression on his face was extremely fascinating. Xiaochen quickly put away the 2 map fragments into his universe ring. Then, his figure flashed and appeared in another direction, leaving behind Xian Yu, who was still in the same posture as before. Riding the dragon dance, Xiaochen harvested non-stop. Anyone who blocked his way was sent flying. Xian Yu clenched his teeth and made up his mind to trick Xiaochen this time. So, he chased after Xiaochen, not letting go. However, Xiaochen did not even bother to look at him. Every time Xiaochen casually grabbed, Xiaochen's actions would miss, preventing him from grabbing anything. 10 minutes later, not a single map fragment remained in the Great Hall. Xiaochen had already swept through all of them. Naturally, the biggest winner was Xiaochen. Of the 100 Great Rock Spreading Wings painting pieces, Xiaochen had swept through 60 of them, more than everyone else combined. The Great Hall fell silent. Without exception, everyone's gazes focused on Xiaochen. There was envy, jealousy, hatred, and even gazes filled with malicious intent. Murderous intent could be seen faintly discernible. However, after seeing Xiaochen's earlier fight with Yan Shisan, no one dared to take the lead. Although the map fragments were precious, the value of one's life was even higher. Aside from Xiaochen, Little Heavenly Monkey was the cultivator who had obtained the most map fragments. He gave Xiaochen a deep look with his gem-like eyes before leaving without looking back. At this moment, Little Heavenly Monkey had to admit that even if he used his full strength, he might not be able to hold back Xiaochen. He might even get killed by Xiaochen and snatch away his map fragment. The cruel reality made him feel somewhat helpless. Originally, he did not care about this person at all. Who could have imagined that he would be his greatest nemesis on this trip? After Little Heavenly Monkey left, sighs came from the crowd as they left unwillingly. Aside from Nangong Qiong, no one else knew about the core map fragment. Seeing that the map fragments were all distributed, the crowd could only leave this place regretfully. Congratulations, young Master Xiao. You obtained 60 map fragments. No one can stop you from showing off your might. Nangong Qiong said softly as she appeared out of nowhere. She revealed a faint smile on her pretty face. Xiaochen had expected this girl to say this long ago. He smiled faintly and ignored her. He walked over to Bai and the other 2 and took out 30 map fragments, distributing them to the 3. Xiaochen had already suppressed the map fragments, so there was no need to continue suppressing them. The 3 put away the map fragments and thanked Xiaochen with cupped fist salutes. The map fragments formed from the comprehensions of a sovereign martial emperor were incredibly precious. The 3 were not unreasonable people. Furthermore, they were familiar with Xiao Chen's character, so they would not reject it. Xian Yu's face darkened as he walked over with his second uncle. His lips twitched a few times before he squeezed out a smile. I have always heard Bai mention you. Now that I see you today, you are indeed extraordinary. Xian Yu originally thought that Yan Shisan would kill Xiao Chen. Who could have imagined that not only did Yan Shisan not injure Xiao Chen, but he even gave face to Xiao Chen and gave the snow feather sword to Bai. After that, Xiao Chen displayed his skills and obtained 60 map fragments, completely overshadowing Xian Yu. Now, when Xian Yu saw the ambiguous expression in Bai's eyes, he could not hide it. Xian Yu wished that he could immediately kill Xiao Chen. However, he was not strong enough. Furthermore, he did not dare to fall out with Bai. The conflicted expression on Xian Yu's handsome face was obvious. Xiao Chen greeted indifferently. Then, he started chatting with Bai, lecturing her not to be rash in the future. He. Bai understands. The next time we meet, Bai will definitely not stand behind elder brother Xiao Chen. When Xiao Bai saw that familiar face and heard that familiar voice, she felt that her elder brother Xiao Chen was the same as before. Nothing had changed. She felt that it was enough. When Xian Yu, who was at the side, saw Bai's meek appearance, the flames in his eyes seemed to be about to spew out. If looks could kill, Xiao Chen would have died 10,000 times already. Unfortunately, looks could not kill. At the very least, Xian Yu's could not. After saying a few words to Jiang Zimo and Mu Xinya, Xiao Chen bid them farewell. Nangong Qiong appeared at an appropriate time. She smiled and said, TSK, you are really generous. You casually gave me half of the map fragment. Young Master Xiao, I discovered that I can no longer see through you. Xiao Chen said casually, how can I see through you? Cut the chatter. Bring me to the central hall of the Grave Palace. After I help you break the door, we will be even. When Nangong Qiong heard the words, Central Hall, she was no longer in the mood to joke around. She activated the many hidden mechanisms and led Xiao Chen in circles. Finally, they arrived before a heavy stone door. The stone door was pure black. Aside from being heavy, it looked very ordinary. Nangong Qiong's expression turned grave. She said sullenly, this is the heavenly cloud stone. It can absorb a cultivator's quintessence. The central control hall of the Grave Palace is inside. Unless one is a descendant of the heavenly rock race, no one can open the door even if they find the mechanism. They can only break it by force. The heavenly cloud stone was one of the mysterious stones of the starry heavens. Xiao Chen had heard of it before. Human cultivators' quintessence, fiend race cultivators' fiend essence, and deity race cultivators' mental energy would not be able to cause any damage. Instead, they would become nourishment for it, making it even harder. Only the purest form of brute force, what was commonly known as force, could shatter it. According to the quality of the heavenly cloud stone, the amount of force it could withstand varied. Since the Heavenly Rock King had found this heavenly cloud stone, its quality would definitely not be low. This is a sage-grade heavenly cloud stone. It can withstand 1,000 tons of force without shattering. However, to young Master Xiao, this should be a piece of cake. Nangong Qiong glanced at Xiao Chen. She smiled faintly, looking fresh and refined. Her smooth, jade-like face did not appear to be fawning. Instead, she looked very charming. Under such flattery, a regular man would rush forward and smash the heavenly cloud stone with a punch. Chapter 764. As Xiao Chen looked at the stone door made of heavenly cloud rock, he remained unmoved. He said calmly, you can give me the alchemic recipe for the breaking sage pill now, right? Strange. Is this lady's charm really not comparable to that little fox's? Naturally, Nangong Qiong did not care about a breaking sage pill. However, when she saw Xiao Chen offend Yan Shisan for Bai's sake, she felt somewhat upset. She wanted to test Xiao Chen. Who knew, he would be so uncooperative. However, this was just a girl's own thoughts. It was not about liking or disliking someone. Xiao Chen received the breaking sage pill, and his heart thumped heavily. However, his expression did not change, not letting Nangong Qiong see anything suspicious. When Xiao Chen arrived before the heavenly cloud rock door, he burned his vital qi. His bones gave off crackling sounds as he clenched his right fist tightly. When Xiao Chen felt the energy contained in his fist, he shouted and punched. Fist winds howled like thunder. The heavenly cloud rock shattered into countless fragments by Xiao Chen, scattering everywhere. A strange light flashed in Nangong Qiong's eyes. She casually waved her hand, and all the rocks flying at her were blown to the side. Chi! At the moment when the stone door was broken, an ear-piercing cry came from inside. The sharp cry contained a dense emperor's might that entered one's sea of consciousness. The strength of the emperor's might was not something the painting pieces outside could compare to. Caught off guard, Xiao Chen could not help taking a few steps back. He circulated his mental energy with all his might before he managed to block this emperor's might and recover. On the other hand, Nangong Qiong seemed to have expected this. When Xiao Chen retreated, she advanced instead of retreating, entering the central control room behind the stone door first. Ha! A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. I knew that this would be the result. Nangong Qiong's somewhat cold voice came from inside. Xiao Chen went forward to take a look and discovered a corpse lying at the foot of the wall in the control room filled with all sorts of formations. The blood on the corpse's lips had yet to dry, and its eyes were wide open, filled with dissatisfaction. It was the young master of the Tianpeng race, Ming Yu. Above the stone room, a heavenly rock formed by the core painting piece spread its wings and circled around. A faint light spread out, and an emperor's might spread throughout the entire stone room. If Zhang Xian was not wrong, Ming Yu must have died from the backlash of eating the map fragment due to his lack of strength. Young Master Xiao, can you help me subdue this core map piece? Nangong Qiong smiled as she walked over to Xiao Chen. It seemed that he had never said that he would give her the core map fragment. The transaction between the two of them ended the moment Nangong Qiong handed over the breaking sage pill and Xiao Chen helped her open the heaven cloud stone door. Puchi. Just as Xiao Chen was about to reply, Nangong Qiong, who was in front of Xiao Chen, suddenly made a move. The heavenly sage laws contained in the sage-grade umbrella danced around wildly. Boundless spiritual energy infused into the umbrella, turning into surging quintessence that gave off a dazzling red light. Nangong Qiong attacked without any warning. There was no killing qi or quintessence fluctuation. She was fast, ruthless, and accurate, not holding back at all. She wanted to deal a fatal blow, severely injuring Xiao Chen. However, along the way, Xiao Chen had never let down his guard against her. As long as she got within 10 meters of him, his quintessence would automatically circulate throughout his body, ready to deal with her at any time. The instant Nangong Qiong made her move, Xiao Chen's body moved almost at the same time, quickly retreating to the back. When Xiao Chen's feet landed on the ground, they gave off extremely unpleasant screeching sounds. He left behind afterimages wherever he went. The umbrella was like a sword, piercing forward and shattering the afterimages. Nangong Qiong's expression turned cold as she chased relentlessly. Xiao Chen had reached the wall behind him, so he could not retreat for long. Indeed, Xiao Chen could not retreat. However, he had never thought of retreating from the very start. He only wanted to put some distance between himself and Nangong Qiong, luring her to continue chasing. The rebound from the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram at close range was not easy to endure. Two beams of light flew out of Xiao Chen's eyes, one purple and one white. The lights chased each other, forming a primal chaos Taiji diagram. The 4 divisions of the sky and the 8 trigrams appeared around the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. The yin-yang flame diagram encompassed the entire world. Bang! The tip of the umbrella crashed into the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Suddenly, a golden light shone, and a vast energy surged out, crushing several of the decorations in the control room into powder. The spiritual heavenly rock above felt a dangerous aura. It spread its wings and flew through the stone door. An even more surging quintessence bounced back at Nangong Cheong from the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Nangong Cheong's pupils constricted, and blood leaked out of a corner of her lips. She went flying back with a pale complexion. Nangong Cheong pushed off the wall and opened the wooden umbrella. Her pale face looked at the slowly fading Taiji yin-yang flame diagram in shock. Young Master Xiao, it looks like you are really unromantic. To think that you are willing to be so ruthless to a weak girl like me. You have truly broken this lady's heart. Nangong Cheong wiped off the blood on her lips and revealed a miserable smile on her pretty face. Xiao Qin smiled coldly to himself. If not for the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram, even if he used the sage-grade pagoda at full power, he would have been severely injured by that earlier strike, even with his strong physical body. If it were another person, that person would have been turned to ashes by that umbrella. Xiao Qin raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled. Miss Nangong's attitude is really good. Despite all your schemes, you still ended up with nothing. Now, not only can you not obtain the core painting piece, but you are also injured. I really want to know why you can still smile. Nangong Cheong revealed an extremely charming smile. Together with her pale face, she looked like the most eye-catching plum blossom in a vast snowy land, extremely beautiful. Young Master Xiao, don't you feel that there is something wrong with the position you are standing in? Xiao Qin was slightly stunned. Then, he quickly sized up his surroundings. The stone room could not be considered narrow. Because he had dodged Nangong Cheong's attack earlier, he had retreated to the deepest part of the stone room. Nangong Cheong, who had been chasing after Xiao Qin, was knocked to the top of the stone door by the Taiji yin-yang flame diagram. Xiao Qin's expression changed, and he immediately figured out the problem. Ha! It is already too late to figure it out now. Nangong Cheong laughed and put away the wooden umbrella. Then, her feet, which were stuck to the wall, moved slightly, and she flipped around, flying through the stone door. After Nangong Cheong landed, a jade strip appeared in her hand. Then, she quickly formed hand seals. Bang! Following closely behind, Xiao Qin arrived before the stone door like a strong gust of wind. A formless barrier appeared, and Xiao Qin crashed into it miserably, giving off a loud sound. Nangong Cheong put away the jade strip and looked at Xiao Qin, who was knocked back. Then, she rested the wooden umbrella on her shoulder and smiled gently. Young Master Xiao, if we are fated, we should be able to meet again. Next time, I will do bad things with you. I'm going to subdue the core painting piece. Young Master Xiao, you should cultivate properly in there. Let's see if you can break this barrier that even inferior-grade martial sages cannot break in 100 years. Remember, this lady is called Ing Cheong, not Nangong Cheong. Her bell-like laughter was like a clear stream on a high mountain. Ing Cheong opened the wooden umbrella and gently leaped up, disappearing from Xiao Qin's sight. Inside the immortal spirit ring, Ao Jiao looked at Xiao Qin, who was trapped in the stone room. She felt helpless. After a long time, she said, "Idiot master, I just knew that this woman would sell you out. It is not about selling or not selling." Xiao Qin's face was still somewhat sore. That earlier collision was too fast. He touched the formless barrier and said indifferently, "Schemes are also skills. If my skills are not as good as hers, there is nothing more to say." Xiao Qin did not feel much hatred for Nangong Cheong's actions. From the very start, he knew that this girl was not someone to offend and was not a kind person. Xiao Qin had made preparations long ago. However, he had not expected that he would still fall into this girl's hands and let her snatch away the core painting piece. However, as long as his clothes remained unchanged, he would find this girl sooner or later and make up for this loss. Right now, the most crucial thing was to figure out how to get out. Xiao Qin withdrew his hand, and a grave expression appeared on his delicate face. Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, tenfold combat prowess, deities descending. Suddenly, a bright golden light burst forth from Xiao Qin's body. A beam of divine light entered his body, causing his aura to soar continuously. He was like a deity walking in the mortal world, worshipping all things. Bang! A punch with tenfold combat prowess from deities descending struck the faint light barrier. There was a loud sound, and blood leaked out of a corner of Xiao Chen's mouth. Xiao Chen flew back in an even more miserable state. Some ripples appeared on the formless light barrier before it calmed down. Xiao Chen's qi and blood surged endlessly. The rebound nearly caused internal injuries to all of his internal organs. Xiao Chen finally experienced what it was like to face the Taiji Yin-Yang flame diagram. Young Master Xiao, just stay here and cultivate properly. Even an inferior grade martial sage would not be able to break this barrier. When Xiao Chen recalled Ding Qiong's voice, he could not help but feel somewhat dispirited. Even a punch with tenfold combat prowess did not budge. Could it be that I have to use the strength character formula? The strength character formula increased his combat prowess by 33 times. If I could not break this barrier, the rebound would probably kill me. When Xiao Chen thought of the consequences, he immediately gave up. Since ancient times, geniuses had all sorts of deaths. However, he had never heard of anyone killing themselves. He did not want to be the first. Xiao Chen recovered from his injuries and said, "It looks like I will have to stay here for a long time." Ao Jiao smiled gently and said, "You are really optimistic. Do you really think that you can break through to martial sage before you starve to death? There is always a way out. There will always be a way out. Furthermore, I do not have to cultivate to martial sage. After I am a half-sage, I should be able to execute deities descending." Xiao Chen tidied up and took out a prayer mat from his universe ring. Then, he took out a few superior-grade spirit-gathering pearls and entered a state of cultivation. The 1,000-year-old white nascent fruit that Xiao Chen consumed previously still had medicinal energy lingering in the depths of his bloodline. As long as he entered a state of cultivation, it would slowly take effect. The effects were not as intense as they were initially. However, it allowed Xiao Chen to achieve twice the results with half the effort. His cultivation improved rapidly. Right now, Xiao Chen was already a middle-stage superior-grade martial monarch. When he used up all the remaining medicinal energy, he should be able to advance to late-stage superior-grade martial monarch. At that time, when he cultivated to peak late-stage superior-grade martial monarch and used the 30-odd painting pieces, he would definitely be able to break through to half-sage in one go. Chapter 765. Therefore, Xiao Chen was quite optimistic about his future. Half a month later, a group of uninvited guests suddenly appeared in the desert outside the Star Grave Palace. These people wore black robes and radiated baleful auras. Their cultivations were deep and strong. All of them were actually loose cultivators. Furthermore, none of them were weaker than Wu Yuankai. There were more than 30 of them. With such a strong force working together, aside from Anjuanshi, any of the 7 giants of the Tianwu domain would have to retreat. The person in the lead was Xian Yu of the Silver Moon Fox clan. At this moment, his face was dark and his handsome face was terrifying. There was no trace of his usual gentleness. Xiao! A figure flew down from the sky. It was Xian Yu's second uncle. After leaving the Star Tomb Palace, this person had been guarding outside and had not left. Xian Yu looked at the huge palace grave and said, "Second uncle, it's been half a month. Is that white-robed brat really not out yet?" "It's absolutely true. I've been guarding for half a month, but I haven't seen him at all. The woman who was with him has already come out, but he still hasn't come out." Xian Yu could not help feeling surprised. The Heavenly Rock Race's people had already emptied out all the treasures in the Star Grave Palace. They had also searched through all the painting pieces. The place was now completely empty. What was Xiao Chen doing in there? Could it be that he wanted to take away this grave palace? This was the grave palace of a sovereign martial emperor. Unless Emperor Wu came, he would not be able to erase the Heavenly Rock King's mark. Forget it. He will come out sooner or later. I don't believe he can hide forever. Xian Yu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He wanted nothing more than to kill Xiao Chen and tear him into pieces. After leaving the palace grave, Bai's attitude toward him became even colder. Before, he would say a few words to him out of politeness. Now, he didn't even say a word. Bai had magic skills and was valued by the Fox King. He had many pursuers, but Xian Yu always felt that the pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. In his heart, Bai would be his sooner or later. Who knew that after he met Xiao Chen, he would suffer all kinds of setbacks, which made him feel that there was a serious gap in his arrogance. After leaving the Star Grave Palace, he could no longer suppress his desire to kill Xiao Chen. After discussing it with his second uncle, he immediately received his second uncle's support. After spending a large sum of money to invite most of the half-sages in the vicinity of Hunluo province and informing Xiao Chen that he had more than 60 emperor's painting pieces, the group of half-sages was extremely tempted. The middle-aged man glanced behind him at the overwhelming baleful aura, the red light of heavenly sage laws, and the many loose cultivators behind him. After some thought, Xian Yu said, "Xian Yu, even if these people work together to kill him, there will be no problem. However, if that person steels himself to flee, he might still have a chance of survival." The corners of Xian Yu's mouth curled up slightly as he sneered, "I've already notified my father. He agreed to send a senior elder over. At that time, if this person is unable to kill that brat, that senior elder will personally take action." Xian Yu's clan had some power in the Silver Moon Spirit Fox race. All the senior elders in the clan were at least inferior grade martial sages. Before a martial sage, no matter how strong Xiao Chen was, he would not be able to do anything. When the middle-aged man heard this, he was stunned at first. Then, he smiled and said, "It looks like the clan head is an understanding person. As long as you can truly obtain by and establish a connection with the Fox King, this bit of capital is definitely worth it." "Second uncle, should we charge in directly? Waiting like this will be too passive." "Absolutely not. The Grave Palace is too big. After we enter, these people will immediately scatter. That will give that brat an opportunity to counterattack." Xian Yu nodded and said, "I never thought of that. In that case, let's just wait here and wait for him to come out. It would be best if the senior elder does not make a move. That way, even if something happens, we can push the blame onto a group of loose cultivators. That way, the Haotian sect will not come looking for trouble." Another half a month passed. Xiao Chen slowly opened his eyes from his cultivation. After 1 month of bitter cultivation and exhausting all the spirit-gathering pearls on him, he finally advanced to peak late-stage superior-grade martial monarch. He was only 1 step shy of advancing to half-sage. The most important thing was that Xiao Chen had completely calmed down. From the time he left the Haotian sect until now, he had not stopped for even a moment. First, he had fought with ferocious beasts in the savage beast forest. Then, he had pitted his wits against 2 old fellows. Finally, he had offended the magnificent Fiend Hall for some reason. After arriving at this Star Grave Palace, Xiao Chen had been fighting non-stop. He had even run into a woman comparable to a spirit. One could say that he was constantly on high alert. Although he was trapped in this small stone room, outsiders could not enter. It could be considered an absolutely safe place. Xiao Chen could calm down and reflect on his experiences in the past 3 months. He did not need to think about anything else. Dragons were trapped in a dangerous land with no way out. However, if one looked at it from another perspective, a dangerous land might be a blessed land. For days later, Xiao Chen sorted out all the comprehensions and experiences he had gained in the past few months. While his cultivation did not increase, his pitch-black eyes appeared even deeper. His accumulations had become much more stable. With a flip of his hand, a painting piece of the great rock spreading wings appeared in Xiao Chen's hand. He muttered to himself, "It is time to absorb this painting piece and advance to half-sage." The great rock spreading wings painting was the comprehension that the Heavenly Rock King, a sovereign fiend emperor, materialized before his death. It contained the emperor's might and strong heavenly laws of a powerful expert. Although this was only a painting piece in Xiao Chen's hand and not the core painting piece, it was still worth cities, a treasure that could tempt even martial sages. Xiao Chen held the painting piece and sat down cross-legged. Then, he started to carefully comprehend the various mysteries contained in it. As Xiao Chen's consciousness slowly sank into it, he felt like he was in a vast and boundless scene. When Xiao Chen looked at it directly, the scene was hazy and ever-changing. He could not make out what it was at all. Was it a desert? Was it a vast ocean? Was it the sky? Or was it a boundless starry sky? Xiao Chen could only feel the vastness, the boundless vastness. When he was in it, he felt like he was not even a drop in the ocean. He was so insignificant that he could not even describe it. Voices resounded in the primal chaos. Those voices seemed to be muttering to themselves, but they also seemed to be lecturing their relatives and juniors, as well as their comprehension and understanding of the martial Tao. The information was chaotic, turning into thousands of beams of light of different colors. They flew before Xiao Chen's eyes, weaving together. This made it hard for him to choose. Xiao Chen, focus your mind. Ignore the white beams of light. Those are the trifling matters of the Heavenly Rock King's life. Ignore the black beams of light as well. Those are the dark side of the Heavenly Rock King. You are not an evil cultivator. If you try to grab them, your mind will be in chaos. Don't touch the red beams of light either. That is the Heavenly Rock King's evil chi. Even if you try to grab them, you will not gain anything. The purple beams of light are the Heavenly Rock King's comprehensions of some martial techniques. You can grab them, but you cannot blindly grab them. There are very few blue beams of light, but you cannot miss them. That is the Heavenly Rock King's cultivation. After you obtain them, you can directly increase your cultivation. There are even fewer golden beams of light, but you cannot miss them. That is the Heavenly Rock King's heavenly laws. After you obtain them, you can directly comprehend heavenly sage laws. You only have 3 chances to make a move before the painting piece runs out of energy and disappears from the world. Just as Xiao Chen was at a loss, Ao Jiao's voice rang out in his mind, explaining the meaning of the various beams of light. The thousands of beams of light slowly became clearer. Xiao Chen's expression also calmed down as he started to observe carefully. Most of the beams of light were white, at least 90%. Next were black and red. There were very few beams of light that were truly useful. As for the golden beams of light, Xiao Chen could only see a blurry figure. He could not be sure if there were any. Whoosh! After observing for a long time, Xiao Chen finally made a move. He caught a purple beam of light in his hand. In that instant, he gained some knowledge of spear techniques. He could not help but feel disappointed. Xiao Chen practiced saber techniques and fist techniques. Spear techniques were only of some use to him. This was equivalent to wasting an opportunity. The second time Xiao Chen made a move, he wanted to catch a blue beam of light. In the end, he was too slow and caught a white beam of light. Some of the Heavenly Rock King's trivial matters appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. He had wasted another opportunity. There was only one opportunity. Xiao Chen focused all his attention. As he looked at the thousands of beams of light dancing around before him, he no longer dared to make a move casually. After thinking for a long time, Xiao Chen made a move at lightning speed. However, he caught nothing. Xiao Chen opened his eyes, and the painting piece in his hand turned into motes of light. Then, they rose into the air and slowly disappeared. A painting piece had been wasted just like that. Xiao Chen could not help feeling that it was a pity. He said, "There are too many chaotic beams of light. It looks like the Emperor's painting pieces are overrated." Ao Jiao smiled and said, "It is not that incredible in the first place. Didn't you see that Nangong girl? She did not even look at these painting pieces. The true essence is all in the core painting piece. Even with more than 100 painting pieces added together, they are not as valuable as one core painting piece." It looked like Xiao Chen had suffered a great loss this time. He had crushed his way here, sweeping through the place. After working so hard for so long, that girl took away the bulk of it. However, never mind. After all, he had 30 painting pieces. He had plenty of opportunities to familiarize himself with them. He was much better than those who only had 4 or 5 painting pieces or 1 painting piece. Following that, Xiaoqin continued absorbing the painting pieces. With his first experience, Xiaoqin was much more accustomed to the same situation the second time. After using up 10 painting pieces, Xiaoqin finally caught hold of 2 beams of blue light. Ka-xie. It seemed like a formless bottleneck in his body had been broken. With a huang-dang sound, the shackles broke. His body, which was a container, became 10 times larger than before. He could vaguely see a flickering door in his body, about to open. That was the door of sages. Once it opened, he would be able to transcend mortality and become a martial sage. After that, no matter where he went in the Kunlun realm, he would be an overlord. This door had blocked many demonic geniuses. To Xiaoqin, it was still too far away. There was no need to think too much about it. Just being able to see it was already pretty good. I finally advanced to half-sage. When Xiaoqin opened his eyes, he revealed an expression of joy. He had refined his quintessence twice in each of the 3 grades of martial monarch. His foundation was already incredibly firm. If not for this, he would have advanced to half-sage long ago. He would not have needed to wait so long. However, now that he had accumulated enough, the benefits he gained far surpassed that of ordinary people. The moment Xiaoqin advanced to half-sage, he saw that hazy door of sages. Since ancient times, not many geniuses had managed to do this. Chapter 766. More importantly, the amount of quintessence that Xiaoqian's body could contain had reached an inconceivable level. If Xiaoqin broke through to martial sage, the number of heavenly sage laws he could convert into would reach a startling number. Since ancient times, why were those demonic geniuses who condensed their quintessence twice able to become major characters in the future? This was the reason why those demonic geniuses who condensed their quintessence twice in the martial monarch realm were able to become major characters in the future. After breaking through to martial sage, one would immediately shake off those martial monarchs who liked to use their cultivation to suppress them. Xiaoqin, congratulations. After suffering so much, you finally advanced to half-sage, Xiaoqin said sincerely from the immortal spirit ring. Every time Xiaoqin consumed the quintessence gathering pill, Ao Jiao could still remember the heart-wrenching pain Ao Jiao felt every time Xiaoqin consumed the quintessence gathering pill. Xiaoqian's cultivation fell far behind the geniuses of the same generation. He could only hide his pride and lofty aspirations in his heart, unable to express them. When the clouds parted to see the moon, when one could endure loneliness and all sorts of pain, one would be able to obtain what one wished for. Xiaoqian's face lit up with joy. However, he remained extremely calm as he said, "It is still not enough. I just advanced to half-sage and have not comprehended my heavenly sage laws yet. I cannot waste any of the remaining 20 painting pieces." Time slowly went by. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. In the blink of an eye, another 20 days had passed. Xiaoqin suppressed the impatience in his heart. He slowly absorbed the remaining 20 painting pieces at the rate of 1 a day. Although this speed was slow, it was steady and steady. Furthermore, with his familiarity with the first 10 painting pieces, the effects of the remaining painting pieces were very obvious. Xiaoqin caught more than 30 beams of blue light, allowing his cultivation to soar. Such a cultivation was equivalent to a sovereign martial emperor personally imparting knowledge to him. There would be no side effects. As for why the other party could increase his cultivation despite being a fiend emperor, Xiaoqin pondered this question for a long time and came up with a guess that he did not dare to confirm. The martial Tao had many changes. However, when one reached the peak, they would all return to the same place. The essence of the energy was the same, there was not much difference. After catching 10-odd purple beams of light, Xiaoqin finally found a fist technique, Kuenpeng fist. Most importantly, he had wasted more than a dozen chances to make a move. A golden beam of light containing sovereign demonic the arch and heavenly laws was firmly grasped in his hand. In the mysterious world within Xiao Chen's body, the tightly shut door of sages opened a crack. In that instant, Xiao Chen obtained 100 faint golden heavenly sage laws. These heavenly sage laws were as thick as a finger. They looked like ribbons of light circling his dantian. If a cultivator of the same cultivation realm were here, they would discover that the heavenly sage laws behind Xiao Chen undulated like waves flickering with a faint golden light. One golden beam of light directly transformed into hundreds of heavenly sage laws. If Wu Yuankai were still alive and saw this scene, he might vomit blood. Wu Yuankai had cultivated bitterly, killed others for their treasures, and used up countless resources. However, after advancing to half-sage for more than 10 years, he had only comprehended 10-odd heavenly sage laws. Furthermore, these were the thread-like heavenly sage laws. Now that Xiao Chen had obtained only the Heavenly Rock King's heavenly law, he now had 100 more heavenly sage laws. Furthermore, these heavenly sage laws were as thick as a pinky. They were at least 10 times stronger than Wu Yuankai's heavenly sage laws. However, they were rather dim in color. Furthermore, they were not the heavenly sage laws that Xiao Chen comprehended. Hence, he felt somewhat uncomfortable using them. If he completely absorbed them, the faint golden heavenly sage laws would turn into purple lightning attributed heavenly laws. In that case, these 100 heavenly sage laws would become Xiao Chen's. No wonder those half-sages went crazy when they saw the painting pieces. They also knew that the painting pieces were somewhat overrated. However, if one was really lucky and managed to grab a golden beam of light, it would be equivalent to gaining 10-odd years of cultivation. However, this chance was too slim. Xiao Chen had 31 painting pieces. He had about 100 chances to make a move. Furthermore, with Ao Jiao's guidance, he had only managed to grab one golden beam of light. It was practically impossible for those half-sages with only 1 or 2 painting pieces to obtain a golden beam of light. After calming his slightly excited heart, Xiao Chen started to refine these heavenly sage laws. He infused his quintessence and mind brand into them. The purple thunder divine incantation slowly circulated, and the purple clouds around his dantian turned into a dense fog that slowly scattered. Then, they slowly seeped into the 100 faint golden heavenly sage laws. After all, the heavenly sage laws were transformed from the Heavenly Rock King's heavenly laws. They were not Xiao Chen's. The process of seeping them in was extremely arduous and difficult. Time slowly went by. Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as a mirror. He did not rush or get impatient. He only slowly sent his quintessence in, showing great patience. After half a day, Xiao Chen finally managed to completely seep in one of the faint golden heavenly sage laws, turning it pure purple. Joy appeared on Xiao Chen's face as he continued to work hard. With the experience from the first time, the second and third times went much smoother. In the end, he was able to take it easy. Half a month later, the 100 faint golden heavenly sage laws all turned purple. Their thickness had decreased by half, but they had become even more solid. Xiao Chen opened his eyes, and a light flickered before him in a hazy world. Creak. In the distance, a saint door that stood in the void quietly opened a tiny crack that was almost negligible. Boom. In that instant, countless sounds entered Xiao Chen's ears. Those were the breathing of the world, the sound of the great Tao. The sounds were like bells ringing rhythmically. The 100 heavenly sage laws in Xiao Chen's body cheered along with the sound of the great Tao, moving up and down. Xiao Chen's exhausted quintessence was completely replenished in a short while. A surging energy spread throughout his body. When he raised his hand, he could feel this energy surging like a raging river, incredibly ferocious and unparalleled. The light disappeared, and the world before him returned to reality. Xiao Chen stared at the faint layer of dusk on the other side of the stone door, the barrier that had trapped him here for 2 months. A brilliant light flickered in Xiao Chen's eyes. He did not hesitate to fly up and circulate the vast quintessence in his body. Then, he punched that invisible barrier. Bang! 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 Berserk electric light burst out of Xiao Chen's fist. The 100 heavenly sage laws danced around wildly, and the heavenly sage laws behind him glowed even brighter. Rings of hazy purple light could be seen with the naked eye, moving up and down like surging waves. The formless light barrier began to tremble violently. Cracks began to spread, as if it would collapse at any moment. However, a short moment later, after a while, a mysterious energy poured into the barrier, and the cracks mended. Then, a huge force bounced back at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's expression changed. His internal organs suffered a flood-like attack. He quickly withdrew his hand and retreated. Then, he took 9 steps in the air. With every step Xiao Chen took, he deflected some of the force, causing space to tremble. After 9 steps, he spun around quickly, deflecting the remaining force bit by bit. As the heavenly sage laws spun, a strong wind howled endlessly in the stone room. By the time Xiao Chen landed, the rebound force had already completely dissipated. Aside from the initial shock, Xiao Chen was not injured at all. This punch was just a casual test after he advanced to half-sage and grasped heavenly sage laws. Xiao Chen did not expect to break out of the door in one go. Withdrawing his fist, Xiao Chen looked at the invisible barrier and entered deep thought. It looked like he needed to shatter this barrier with one punch. Otherwise, if he gave it time to catch its breath, even if it was just for a moment, it would be useless. However, now that I have a full power punch, I can achieve the might of deities descending in the past, perhaps even surpassing it. When I familiarize myself with the strength of my body and execute deities descending, I have a 70% chance of breaking this barrier with my 10-fold combat prowess. Withdrawing his gaze, Xiao Chen glanced at the corpse of the heavenly rock race's young race head, Mingyu. The stone room was sealed, and it was in the depths of the grave palace. Hence, Mingyu's corpse had not rotted yet. It still looked the same as before, its eyes wide open as it stared in a certain direction. Xiao Chen thought back to when he first met this person. He kept feeling that something was wrong. At that time, Mingyu stood on the altar, facing the many outstanding talents hiding in the surroundings. His expression had not changed, he had been very confident, not showing any fear. This person was definitely not as weak as Nangong Qiong made him out to be. He should have been confident of subduing the core painting piece. However, the reality was that the moment Xiao Chen and Nangong Qiong entered, they saw this person's corpse. What exactly is wrong? Xiao Chen thought for a while but could not come up with an answer. Just as he was about to give up on this question, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of something. Then, he walked over to Mingyu's corpse and looked in the direction of Mingyu's extremely dissatisfied gaze. Suddenly, Xiao Chen's expression changed. At the end of Mingyu's vision was an unremarkable corner of a wall. There was a square piece of paper pasted there. The color of the paper was almost exactly the same as the color of the surrounding wall. If not for Mingyu's angle, one would not have noticed the square piece of paper pasted on the wall. Standing up, Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and drove out a vast quintessence from his heavenly sage laws. Then, he casually sent out a strand of saber qi. The purple saber qi looked very solid, containing Xiao Chen's great perfection saber intent. Although it was just a casual strike, given Xiao Chen's current cultivation, regular half-sages would not dare to underestimate it. Qi! A piercing bird cry resounded, and a vast and imposing emperor's might spread out, pressing towards Xiao Chen like a heavy mountain. Earlier, it was just an ordinary piece of white paper. Now, it gave off a bright light and turned into a scarlet heavenly rock with a ferocious look in its eyes. This heavenly rock was very different from the heavenly rock formed by the painting pieces earlier. One had an overwhelming spirituality, while the other exuded a baleful aura. It gave the impression of a man-eating ferocious beast. Ao Jiao, who was in the immortal spirit ring, showed a startled expression. She said, "Xiao Chen, be careful. This is an evil spirit formed by the heavenly rock king's baleful aura. After tens of thousands of years, it unexpectedly gained intelligence. Everyone had a dark side. Naturally, the heavenly rock king was no exception. The great rock spreading wings painting was formed by his body before he died. It definitely contained his baleful aura, killing chi, and all sorts of dark sides. When the painting was complete, it was not a big problem, as there was a bright side to neutralize it. Chapter 767. However, once the picture scroll shattered, the dark sides gathered together. After a long time, it would be hard to avoid strange changes. Ka-cie. The scarlet heavenly rock flapped its wings. The strand of purple saber chi that Xiaoqin sent out shattered it into pieces. They turned into flashes of lightning that crackled and flickered. Xiaoqian's pupils constricted slightly. Aside from a grave expression, there was something else in the depths of his eyes. Ao Jiao, if I did not guess wrong, it should be a core painting piece as well. The core painting piece that Ing Qiong subdued should be the Heavenly Rock King's light side. There should not be one core painting piece but two. Xiaoqian's guess was right. The core painting piece was indeed split into two. One contained the Heavenly Rock King's good side and the light side. The other was occupied by the Heavenly Rock King's evil side and the dark side. Both had gained some intelligence. However, in terms of craftiness and viciousness, the light side was far inferior to the dark side. This dark core painting piece had killed Mingyu. At the crucial moment when he was subduing the light part, the dark core painting piece sneak attacked him and killed him. Hence, Mingyu felt extremely dissatisfied when he died. He had great ambitions and was about to succeed. In the end, he died at the hands of a core painting piece, an unparalleled genius falling just like that. Furthermore, this core painting piece was extremely crafty. When it felt threatened, it even knew how to disguise itself to deceive others. If not for that final flash of inspiration, Xiaoqin might not have discovered it. If this evil spirit had another few hundred years, it might have gained another powerful ferocious spirit. However, now, Xiaoqin had advanced to half-sage and refined 100 heavenly sage laws. This dark core painting piece could not do anything to him. The scarlet heavenly rock flapped its wings, and rings of red light came from its body. It looked ferociously at Xiaoqian as it cried out and charged over. Its scarlet claws flickered with a cold light as it tried to tear Xiaoqian to shreds. The space was narrow, so Xiaoqian did not dodge. He did not intend to engage in a tug-of-war with this dark core painting piece. Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, tenfold combat prowess, deities descending. Bang! At this moment, Xiaoqian's tenfold combat prowess was incomparable to before. When he punched, the heavenly sage laws behind him formed ribbons of light. Light burst forth like a halo, visible to the naked eye. As his long hair fluttered in the wind, Xiaoqian was like a god walking in the world. A loud sound came from the void. The air was blasted apart by this punch. The entire stone chamber shook violently as if it was going to collapse at any time. The fist wind carried a shockwave as it surged forward. The descending scarlet heavenly rock cried out miserably and flew back. The red light on its body dimmed significantly, and its body turned illusory. The scarlet sky rock hid in a corner, trembling as it looked at Xiaoqian. One punch, and the ferocious black painting piece completely lost its temper. Deities descending was very mighty. Unfortunately, the amount of mental energy and quintessence it exhausted was startling as well. Xiaoqian could not use it without any worries. Otherwise, with another 2 punches, this evil spirit would be completely destroyed. Xiaoqian roared and shot up, launching a barrage of attacks at the scarlet heavenly rock. The scarlet heavenly rock, which had been weakened by deities descending, could not retaliate at all before Xiaoqian's unstoppable aura. It cried out miserably without end. Those who heard it panicked. However, they could not save the heavenly rock from death. After the final strike, the scarlet heavenly rock cried out miserably and turned into clumps of scarlet light, vanishing from the stone chamber. A painting piece covered in black light slowly floated down from the sky. Xiaoqian stretched out his hand to catch it. Ci La. A hole appeared in the protective quintessence around his hand, and he instantly felt pain in his palm. Xiao reflexively tossed out the black painting piece. What's going on? Looking at the wound on his palm, Xiao felt confused. The evil spirit was already dead, but this black light could still break through his protective quintessence. Ao Jiao said, "You are inexperienced. This is filled with the Heavenly Rock King's evil aura and dark side. Unless you are an evil cultivator, how can you touch this thing?" Although the core painting piece split into two and more than 10,000 years have passed, it is no longer as mighty as it was in the beginning. However, it is still the evil aura of a sovereign martial emperor. You cannot absorb it with your current cultivation. As Xiao looked at the dark core painting piece floating in the air, he could not help feeling depressed. Such a great temptation was placed before him, yet he could not swallow it. Is there any other way? I can think about it, Xiao asked, feeling dissatisfied. Ao Jiao supported her chin with her right hand and smiled. Naturally, there is a way. When we go to the place where the Thunder King comprehended his will, we can draw out the immortal divine lightning and purify the evil aura and dark aura. Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. Originally, he had intended to rush to the place where the Thunder King comprehended his will after he left. It would not be a big deal for him to absorb the light from the core painting piece after some time. Without touching the dark painting piece, Xiao directly placed it in his universe ring. Then, he did not say anything more and started to familiarize himself with his current strength. During the 2 months in the Grave Palace, Xiao strength had accumulated greatly, reaching unprecedented heights. This improvement was inevitable and not a coincidence. Even without this painting piece, it would have been the same. The painting piece was just an igniter. It completely ignited the energy that Xiao had accumulated as a martial monarch. Then, it exploded, achieving a qualitative leap. Xiao strength had suddenly increased by too much. He needed to calm down and carefully explore this energy, familiarizing himself with it as quickly as possible. 3 days later, Xiao gained a rough understanding of his current combat prowess. If he met the Bai Wuxue of half a year ago, even without comprehending the will of thunder, he would be able to defeat him easily. Of the 7 giants, only Juanxi could hold his own against him. If first senior sister did not distance herself, she would not be able to defeat him in close combat. However, while Xiao was improving, the others were improving as well. As for the specifics, it was hard to say. I have to comprehend the will of thunder. What I want is not just to defeat Bai Wuxue. And Juanxi, the aloof son of the 3 holy masters, and the various geniuses of the other races of the Kunlun realm's 5 domains are all my opponents. A determined expression appeared in Xiao eyes. Then, he looked at the formless barrier in front of the stone door that he could not break. His expression turned grave. Xiao walked to the stone door step by step. Then, he looked at the faint light barrier and took a deep breath. Although Xiao was fully confident of breaking this formless barrier, there were exceptions to everything. Once he failed, Deity's Descending's tenfold combat prowess would land on him. With Xiao current strength, even if he did not die from such an attack, he would be severely injured. Indecisiveness was not Xiao character. A cold light flashed in Xiao eyes as he executed Deity's Descending and punched the formless barrier. Bang! 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 Non-stop explosions resounded. The formless barrier was like a mirror. Then, it shattered into pieces and scattered in all directions with a gust of wind. The situation was simpler than Xiao imagined. He did not continue to struggle or wait anxiously. With his tenfold combat prowess, he broke this formless barrier with one punch. Xiao withdrew his fist and revealed a relaxed expression. Ying Qiong laughed at him for not being able to come out for 100 years. However, he managed to do so in less than 2 months. Xiao said that even an inferior-grade martial sage would not be able to break this formless barrier. However, with his tenfold combat prowess, he managed to break it with one punch. In terms of explosive power, Xiao had accumulated 100 heavenly sage laws. With his tenfold combat prowess, a regular inferior-grade martial sage would not be able to compare to him. In terms of sustained explosive power, Xiaoqun could not compare to a martial sage. After all, he could not use his tenfold combat prowess like drinking water without any worries. Xiaoqun raised his foot and walked out of the stone room that he had been trapped in for 2 months. Fresh air immediately assaulted his face. Breaking this barrier with one punch gave Xiaoqun boundless confidence. He asked somewhat anxiously, "Ao Jiao, how far is the place where the Thunder King comprehended his will from here?" "It is not far. With your current speed, if you travel at full speed, you will reach it in 10 days. That is a fiend race forbidden land called Misleading Fog Lake." Misleading Fog Lake? Xiaoqun repeated this name twice. Just from the name, he could guess what kind of place it was. Misleading Fog Lake is shrouded in thick fog. Mental energy and other senses would not exceed 500 meters in there. Even a martial sage would be trapped in there. Ao Jiao continued, "However, you have my guidance. There is no need to worry about getting lost." Xiaoqun smiled faintly. Since Ao Jiao said that, there was no need to worry. When the time came, he just had to focus on comprehending the will of thunder. Once he comprehended the will of thunder, he would become an unrivaled existence among half-sages. As they spoke, Xiaoqun arrived at the exit of the Grave Palace. Just as he was about to step out, he frowned slightly and stopped. "Young Master Xian, how much longer do we have to wait? Although we are not major characters, we should not waste our time like this." Outside the vast Grave Palace, the leader of the 30 half-sage loose cultivators on the yellow sand asked sinisterly with a sullen expression. Originally, they had said that they would wait for half a month at most. Not only would they obtain 100,000 astral coins, but they would also obtain 2 painting pieces. However, they ended up waiting for 1.5 months. No matter how tempting they were, they would grow impatient. They suggested charging in several times, but Xian Yu stopped them. As time went by, this group of people became more and more agitated. Every 2 or 3 days, they would come looking for Xian Yu to pester him. Xian Yu's expression turned sullen. He had not expected Xiaoqun to be in there for 2 months without coming out. What does 2 months count for? If you can obtain 1 painting piece, with some luck, you can save 10 years of bitter cultivation. The black-clad man smiled insincerely. If you have a painting piece, naturally, everything will be fine. However, if you do not, what do you mean? I am the scion of the Silver Moon Spirit Fox Race's Xian clan. Why would I lie to an insignificant person like you? If you don't want to wait, my Xian clan's martial sage will be coming soon. At that time, if you continue speaking nonsense with me, I will give you all the benefits. Xian Yu was in a bad mood in the first place. When he saw the black-clad man's attitude, he immediately flared up. The black-clad man did not want to blow the matter up. Furthermore, the Xian clan did have some power and was not someone he could afford to offend. After muttering a few words, he left. Humph. You keep coming to me to say this and that. Aren't you just trying to increase the rewards? None of these loose cultivators are good people. Chapter 768. The middle-aged man beside Xian Yu frowned slightly and said, Xian Yu, just waiting like this is not a solution. How about I go in and check out the situation first and see what that white-robed brat is doing? Xian Yu's expression remained calm, but a heavy murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He said in a cold voice, the Xian clan's senior elders will arrive today. At that time, the senior elders will lead the way. At the exit of the Grave Palace, Xiaoqun, who was hidden in the shadows, saw all this. His lips curled up, and a cold murderous intent flashed on his delicate face. There would always be some people who would do foolish things that they believed to be infallible. Young Master Xian, are you looking for me? Xiaoqun walked out of the shadows and stood before the steps of the Grave Palace. As he looked at Xian Yu in the distance, he smiled faintly and spoke in a clear voice. When the blazing sunlight shone on Xiaoqun's body, it made his white robes reflect a faint glow. In that instant, it seemed like all the light gathered on him, making him look very bright. As the light flickered, Xian Yu's eyes flickered. However, he was currently filled with rage and did not care why this happened. When Xian Yu saw the white-robed Xiao Chen, he revealed an expression of wild joy. He shouted, "That's him! Kill him! 100,000 astral coins and the painting pieces are all yours." The 30 half-sages behind immediately discovered Xiao Chen the moment he appeared. Their instincts told them that Xiao Chen was a very dangerous person. However, when they checked and discovered that he was just a half-sage, they relaxed. No matter how dangerous it was, there were 30 of them. Furthermore, every one of them was an outstanding half-sage. They were not early-stage half-sages like Situlei, who had not comprehended heavenly sage laws yet. In their eyes, Xiao Chen was just a fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. He was destined to die. Kill! The leader of the group charged forward, giving off an overwhelming baleful aura as he soared into the sky. 10 odd slender scarlet heavenly sage laws moved up and down behind him, making him look like an ancient ferocious god. Blood hand chop. This person shouted coldly, and his right hand suddenly turned scarlet like blood. He looked very charming and demonic. The middle-aged man smiled at Xian Yu and said, "This blood hand chop is a rather tyrannical blood technique. It requires the blood of 1,000 female martial monarchs to cultivate. After great perfection, the palm becomes as red as blood. Not only can it split mountains, but it also possesses unparalleled might. Furthermore, it contains blood poison, baleful aura, and resentment. It is an extremely sinister martial technique. Even an inferior-grade martial sage would not feel good after receiving such an attack." Xian Yu's eyes flickered with excitement when he heard that. Every single one of the 30 people he had found possessed a unique skill. After committing numerous crimes in the Tianwu domain and the Fiend domain, he ran to Hunluo province. Any one of them would be a ruthless character in the same cultivation realm. If 30 ruthless characters attacked together, Xiao Chen would not have any chance of survival. Even if Xiao Chen's methods were powerful and his luck was impressive, the Xian clan's senior elders were still rushing over. In the end, he would not be able to escape death. Don't blame me for being cruel. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for falling in love with someone you shouldn't have. There are some people that a small character like you can't afford to offend." Xian Yu's expression was cold as he said with a chilling gaze. Bang! However, just as he finished speaking, he heard a heart-wrenching scream. Xiao Chen, who was standing in front of the palace grave, did not move an inch. Looking at the bloody hand flying at him, he directly punched it. 100 purple heavenly sage laws gave off a bright light. A vast and pure lightning attributed quintessence poured into Xiao Chen's right hand like a surging river. The sound of a fist rang out, and thousands of dazzling purple lightning bolts shot out. The blood-red right hand of the leader was smashed into a pile of broken bones by Xiao Chen the moment it came into contact with Xiao Chen. The bloody hand that the leader was so proud of, the one that had chopped off many sect half-sages, was crushed by Xiao Chen's absolute strength. The force of the fist continued to spread up through the leader's right hand. The bones in his right arm exploded continuously. Soon, the leader's right hand was crippled, and he became a one-armed half-sage. Unorthodox methods are just insignificant tricks in the end. Xiao Chen could not be bothered with this person as he cried out miserably. He clenched his fist and instantly punched with the 100 heavenly sage laws in his body. No! This person felt the threat of death approaching. He drained all the quintessence in his remaining left hand, driving the heavenly sage laws as he did his best to block Xiao Chen's punch. However, the 10 odd slender heavenly sage laws in his body were as weak as babies before Xiao Chen. 100 finger-thick purple heavenly sage laws surged out and easily shattered the heavenly sage laws. Ka-xie! Ka-xie! Xiao Chen's protective quintessence and heavenly sage laws all shattered. Xiao Chen's punch blasted the leader of the loose cultivators into a clump of scarlet light. As the saying went, the evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. Evil cultivators were extremely evil. Qian could be considered to have brought this upon himself by crushing his bones and scattering his ashes. Such a scene happened in an instant. The previously awe-inspiring loose cultivator turned into a clump of scarlet light in 2 breaths of time by Qian, dying without a complete corpse. A trace of horror flashed across the eyes of the 20 or so wandering cultivators, and their movements involuntarily paused for a moment. Shock filled Xian Yu's eyes. He said in disbelief, "What in the world is going on?" 2 months ago, he was just a superior-grade martial monarch. How did he advance to half-sage in 2 months? Furthermore, he comprehended so many heavenly sage laws. When Qian saw the openings in the group of loose cultivators in the air, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then, he shot forward like a sharp arrow. Majestic sagely songs rang out in the air. As the sagely songs drifted about, they told of a distant legend. As his combat experience increased, Qian's comprehension of the myriad heaven divine fist deepened. The power of a distant legend was to create a sense of vicissitudes of history. As time passed, the legend would become an epic, and the epic would become a myth. Who was the legend? Who was the epic? Who was the myth? It was not those vague deities in the distant heavenly nation. It was himself, Qian. The change in Qian's mentality and comprehension allowed this move to evolve in that instant. The vast sagely songs of the distant legends sang of his glory. Qian's past deeds, his various glorious achievements in the Sky Dome realm, materialized into huge golden paintings that flickered in the surroundings, creating a vast and majestic aura. When Qian punched, the sagely songs rang out, and a boundless light poured out. His mental energy, quintessence, and vital qi merged into one. His essence, qi, and soul turned into an unparalleled divine radiance. Boom! The light struck the 29 half-sages in the air, which Qian had found openings in. They all cried out in pain and vomited large mouthfuls of blood as they fell to the yellow sand. The sagely songs did not ring out, but the light on Qian's body grew increasingly brighter. The deities in the boundless starry heavens, hundreds of billions of light-years away, all focused their gazes on Qian. This was different from the gazes of the past. This time, aside from boundless energy, the deities' gazes also contained a gaze of wisdom. It seemed like because of Qian's comprehension of the distant legend, the deities had a whole new level of respect for him, materializing the light of wisdom in their gazes. The deities' gazes pierced through and focused on Qian, making the light on his fist dazzlingly dazzling. It looked like it could compete with the blazing sun of the Kunlun realm. Radiance of deities. A vast pillar of light flew towards the 29 half-sages on the ground as Qian punched. Everywhere it passed, it wiped out all the dust and cleansed the surroundings. All sorts of sins and evils were cleanly purified. The 29 half-sages on the ground showed horrified expressions. They quickly linked their heavenly sage laws into a line, forming an undulating scarlet river. Ghosts cried and wolves howled in the river for thousands of kilometers. Corpses piled up, and aggrieved spirits drifted about. This was the dark scarlet river of hell that rivaled the underworld river. The dark scarlet sea depicted the great sins and evils of the world. It was one of the most horrifying mysterious phenomena. However, these people's heavenly sage laws were only as thin as ribbons. Even when they were combined, they were not as strong as Qian's. Furthermore, they were not powerful evil cultivators who did not comprehend the meaning of the dark scarlet sea. Even if they could materialize the mysterious phenomenon of the dark scarlet river, they would not be able to save themselves from being killed. Boom! The light did not extinguish, and the holy light was eternal. A vast aura and a trace of wisdom instantly shattered that dark scarlet sea. Silently, all the evil and darkness were purified. There were not even any cries of pain. A bottomless hole appeared in the yellow sand. The 29 half-sages died without a trace. Qian casually waved his hand and collected all the spatial rings in the deep hole. Then, he glanced coldly at the dumbfounded Xian Yu in the distance. Xian Yu, quickly leave. This person is a demonic genius like Yan Shisan. Now that he has advanced to half-sage, no one can stop him. The middle-aged man let out a horrified roar as he turned and fled, fleeing for his life. When the spring wind is endless, the weeds are endless. When cutting the weeds, one has to pull out the roots. Naturally, Xiaoqin would not let the two fleeing people off. Keeping such vicious people by Bai's side would be a disaster. Be it for himself or for Bai, Xianyu and his second uncle had to die. Riding on the 3 blue dragons, Xiaoqin arrived quickly. Riding on the dragons, he kicked up strong winds. Surging yellow sand rose up behind him like a mountain. His aura was overwhelming, and the winds and clouds changed color. In 2 or 3 breaths, Xiaoqin caught up to the fleeing Xianyu and the middle-aged man. Xianyu, quickly leave. I'll help you block him. When the middle-aged man saw Xiaoqin land, he quickly flew over, trying to buy time for Xianyu to leave. The middle-aged man's quintessence surged. He did not care about the exhaustion as he executed all sorts of martial techniques with great momentum, attacking Xiaoqin continuously. Yellow sand flew everywhere, and under the blazing sun, Xiaoqin's expression did not change. He countered every move, returning a move with every move. The quintessence condensed by 100 heavenly sage laws surged out as Xiaoqin's palm moved. To the middle-aged man, it was like a mountain smashing into his chest. After 10 moves, the middle-aged man vomited blood and went flying. His complexion paled, without a trace of blood. This was absolute strength, a complete suppression. A demonic genius would erupt after accumulating for a long time. Once he advanced to half-sage, all the pain he suffered would blossom into a flower of pride that shone brightly. Chapter 769. Flowers do not wither, the sun does not extinguish, the heavens do not disappoint me. Xiaoqin waved his hand, and the lunar shadow saber appeared in his hand from the universe ring. Without drawing the saber, he casually swung it. Pu ci. The sharp scabbard and the lunar shadow saber gave off a piercing sonic boom. Before the middle-aged man landed, the lunar shadow saber pierced through his chest, pinning him to the yellow sand. Blood flowed out and seeped into the golden sand. Soon, the blazing sun roasted it into a glaring blood stain, like a flower of death blooming. Suddenly, a shadow appeared. When Xiaoqin looked up, he saw Xianyu revealing his true form. He had turned into a 4-meter-tall, 20-meter-long, 3-tailed white fox. However, even after revealing his true form, Xianyu still did not have the confidence to fight Xiaoqin. He only wanted to run faster, to increase his chances of escaping. Xiaoqin gently leaped up and smiled coldly as he watched the 3-tailed white fox flee. He circulated the myriad heaven divine fist and executed the 4th move, Chains of Deities. Ka xie. Ka xie. In the void, long golden chains appeared around the 3-tailed white fox. At this moment, the chains were infused with Xiaoqin's heavenly sage laws. Compared to before, they looked even more realistic. The patterns on the chains were very clear. The flowing divine scripts gave off a bright light. Under the illumination of the blazing sun, they looked even more dazzling and divine. So. The 3-tailed white fox's nimble body leaped around in the air, dodging the berserk dragon-like chains with the divine scripts. However, these divine scripts contained the will of deities. They were compatible with the world. Unless the 3-tailed spirit fox broke them forcefully, it would not be able to escape the seals of the chains. Soon, a chain wrapped itself around one of the 3-tailed spirit fox's legs, preventing it from struggling free. Following that, more chains flew over like a strong wind, completely sealing it. Pai Li. Pa La. The divine scripts flowed and struck the 3-tailed spirit fox's body, causing it to cry out in pain. Its body trembled continuously as its strength was slowly sealed. Crackle, crackle, crackle. Waves of divine patterns flowed and struck the body of the 3-tailed spirit fox, causing it to howl in pain. Its body trembled uncontrollably as its power was slowly sealed. Xiaoqin stretched out his hand and beckoned. The three-tailed spirit fox that was bound by the divine mark chains landed before Xiao Chen with a loud bang. It kicked up a large cloud of yellow sand that flew away with the wind. After landing on the ground, Xian Yu completely lost the power to maintain his demon body. He returned to his human form and appeared in front of Xiao Chen. However, his handsome face was pale and devoid of blood. He looked like an ordinary person under the pressure of Xiao Chen's half-sage might. He had completely lost the will to fight back. Fear filled his heart, and he didn't dare to look at Xiao Chen directly. Compared to the murderous and sinister aura from before, it formed a huge contrast. Xian Yu thought back to what he had said, there are some people that a small character like you can't afford to offend. Indeed, there were some people that a small character like him could not afford to offend. However, that small character was himself and not Xiao Chen. Don't kill me. Now that the Fox King has taken Baiyan as his adopted daughter, there will be many spirit fiend geniuses eyeing her. With me watching from the side, I guarantee that no one will dare to touch her or harm her. In the end, Xian Yu's desire to live won over his pride. As he looked at the expressionless Xiao Chen, he could not help begging for mercy. At the same time, Xian Yu wanted to buy some time for himself. When the Xian clan's senior elders arrived, the situation would turn around completely. The one begging for mercy would be Xiao Chen. Xian Yu was born in a noble clan of the Silver Moon Spirit Fox race. He was handsome and had outstanding talent. Since he was young, he had been the center of attention. His future was boundless. As long as Xian Yu managed to win Bai's heart, he would be able to establish a relationship with the Fox King and gain the favor of a sovereign martial emperor. At that time, the spirit fiend geniuses of the fiend domain would not dare to be impudent before him. I cannot die. I absolutely cannot die. I still have a great future ahead of me. I cannot fall here. Thinking of this, Xian Yu started begging for mercy in a low voice, making all sorts of promises like rain. If he did not get rid of this problem, even if he did not harm himself, he would harm his friends. Xiao Chen could not be bothered to listen to Xian Yu's sophistry. He pointed at Xian Yu's forehead, intending to kill him. Brat, try attacking if you dare. Just at this moment, a thunderous shout came from the distance. This voice seemed to resonate with heaven and earth, affecting Xiao Chen's mind. When Xian Yu heard this voice, he could not help but rejoice. When Xian Yu heard this, he could not help but rejoice. He swept away his earlier sorry state and laughed loudly, the Doyen is here. The Doyen is here. Xiao Chen, you are dead for sure. Just wait to kneel and beg for mercy. You bastard, how dare you snatch Xiao Bai from me? At first, the voice came from far away. After Xiao Chen was distracted for a moment, the other party's figure appeared before him. As the figure approached, a strong wind blew, covering the yellow sand on the ground. It rustled as it arrived before Xiao Chen. A figure hid in the yellow sand. This figure threw a palm strike at Xiao Chen without saying a word. It turned out that the Xian clan's martial sage had arrived. However, so what? He was just an inferior grade martial sage. Did he think that he was some powerful expert? Myriad Heaven Divine Fist, tenfold combat prowess, deities descending. A strand of divine light tore through the barrier of the sky and entered Xiao Chen's body. Then, it merged with his heavenly sage laws. Immediately, Xiao Chen's body released a dazzling golden light. His hair fluttered in the wind, giving off motes of light. Xiao Chen's aura soared infinitely. Everything in the world had to bow before him. Bang! A resplendent fist clashed with that Xian clan senior elder's palm strike. A loud rumble resounded and yellow sand filled the air. Before Xian Yu's horrified gaze, the Xian clan senior elder that he saw as his savior grunted. Unexpectedly, he got knocked back by Xiao Chen's punch. The Xian clan senior elder landed 5 kilometers away. Then, he slid along the yellow sand for another 2 kilometers before he truly stabilized himself. Before the wild joy on Xian Yu's face faded away, he was stupefied. He did not know what was going on until Xiao Chen looked over. Only then did Xian Yu react. He said, "Xiao Chen, don't kill me. I'll give you 1,000,000 astral coins. I can think of a way to give you all the beauties of the spirit fox race. I will definitely not target by." Before Xian Yu could finish speaking, a finger-sized hole appeared on his forehead. Blood poured out, and he lost all signs of life, unable to say another word. A martial sage could cross the distance of 7 kilometers in the blink of an eye. The Xian clan senior elder, who had been knocked back by Xiao Chen's punch due to underestimating him, suffered some internal injuries. When he saw the dead Xian Yu, his expression immediately changed drastically. "You actually really killed my Xian clan's scion." The Xian clan senior elder bellowed angrily at Xiao Chen, enraged. Xiao Chen gently drifted back. As he moved back, he casually pulled out the lunar shadow saber from Xian Yu's second uncle's chest. He said coldly, "No matter who the killer is, they should be prepared to be killed. This is the way of the world. You only have yourself to blame. Why are you pretending to be confused?" The Xian clan senior elder did not get angry. Instead, he smiled and said, "This is the way of the world. In that case, this old man will kill you now. It looks like you have nothing to complain about." Martial sage transcended mortality and entered holiness. Once a cultivator advanced to martial sage, they would undergo a transformation from the inside out. Not only would their quintessence turn into heavenly sage laws, but the moment they advanced to martial sage, their physical body would also undergo a baptism of the world. Along the way, their physical body, which had been cleansed by spiritual energy thousands of times, would undergo a complete transformation, becoming a sage body. During that moment of advancement, the martial artist would also enter an indescribably wonderful state of being one with the world. At this time, if any martial technique or cultivation method reached a bottleneck, if they reached a bottleneck in any martial technique or cultivation technique, they could use the state of being one with nature to effectively break through the bottleneck, allowing them to gain insight and broaden their mind, allowing them to break through in one go. Cultivators who crossed the hurdle of martial sage would become an overlord of a region. Even if they went to the 9 ranks of the great families, they would be treated with respect and treated generously. Martial sages were the true experts of the Kunlun realm. They were the elites of any sect or faction. The Xian clan senior elder before Xiao Chen was such an expert, a bona fide inferior grade martial sage without any exaggeration. If a regular half-sage heard that a martial sage wanted to kill them, they would immediately be frightened to death. Their minds would be thrown into chaos, and they would either kneel and beg for mercy or turn around and flee. However, Xiao Chen's expression did not change much. If he really felt fear, he would not have killed Xian Yu despite knowing that this person was here. "If you think you have the ability, you can do it." Xiao Chen landed on the ground and looked at the other party calmly. In terms of physical body, Xiao Chen had a rank 2 sage body, which was far stronger than the other parties. In terms of heavenly sage laws, the other party was not a demonic genius or had any great fortuitous encounters. The other party was just an ordinary inferior grade martial sage. Even after converting all his quintessence into heavenly sage laws, he only had about 150 heavenly sage laws, not much stronger than Xiao Chen. The only advantage the other party had over Xiao Chen was that he had been a martial sage longer. His understanding and usage of heavenly sage laws far surpassed Xiao Chen's. In this aspect, Xiao Chen could not compare to the other party at all. If the two entered a tug of war, Xiao Chen would definitely lose. However, Xiao Chen was not foolish enough to fight with the other party until victory was decided. The Xian clan senior elder snorted coldly and said, "If I had not been careless earlier, how could I have been knocked back by your palm strike? Do you really think that you can defeat a martial sage? Die." Right after the Xian clan senior elder spoke, all 150 heavenly sage laws surged out of his body and danced wildly behind him. The spiritual energy of the world flowed like a river, merging into the heavenly sage laws. This made the blue heavenly sage laws even more profound and filled with power. Shao Chen thought to himself, after removing the heavenly sage laws from my body, I can absorb the spiritual energy of the world even more directly. It looks like there are indeed many techniques in the martial sage realm that half-sages cannot grasp. Hu Qi. The Xian clan's senior elder flew forward and sent out a palm strike. The 30-odd heavenly sage laws behind Shao Chen quickly flew into his palm, making this seemingly ordinary palm strike feel like a real mountain pressing down on him. When the Xian clan's senior elder leaped down, it was like he had turned into a mountain pressing down, pushing down the air. Shao Chen's shoulders immediately felt a strong pressure. However, his physical body could endure it and did not affect his movement technique. However, the desert below him could not endure it. It formed a strange whirlpool and kicked up a large amount of sand in all directions. Soon, a huge, deep pit appeared. This was not an aura, nor was it pressure. This was actual force, a kind of pressure formed by the heavenly sage laws. Before this, regular half-sages would find it difficult to even walk. Chapter 770. If I did not have any fortuitous encounters, I would have been too careless. Shao Chen said with a slightly grave expression. He could not underestimate any martial sage, at least not now. He circulated the heavenly sage laws in his body, and the remaining pressure immediately vanished. Without drawing his saber, Shao Chen watched the Xian clan senior elder's palm strike. He grasped his saber's hilt with his right hand and infused 30 heavenly sage laws into it as well. Bang! The tip of the saber's scabbard and the Xian clan senior elder's palm instantly clashed. A vast energy immediately surged out in all directions from where the two clashed. The loud sound was like thunder. The ground within a 5-kilometer radius was instantly shaved off by 100 meters. Countless yellow sand was swept up by the airflow. The sandstorms formed hundreds of 100-meter-long sandstorms surging out in all directions. The clear sky turned dark at this moment. Pure electric light flickered continuously on the scabbard. The Xian clan's senior elder's palm turned cold. With a casual strike, the two were evenly matched. Neither gained the upper hand. Clearly, this was not the result that the Xian clan's senior elder was willing to see. His face sank, and another 30 heavenly sage laws poured into his palm. Shao Chen could not bring out his heavenly sage laws like the Xian clan senior elder, so he could not compare to the Xian clan senior elder in terms of strength. Shao Chen's body trembled, and the Xian clan senior elder, whose strength had suddenly doubled, immediately knocked him back. However, Shao Chen's physical body had already reached rank 2 sage body. Before the Xian clan senior elder's shocked gaze, he spun around twice and dissipated the surging force. Shao Chen pushed off the air and executed a blue dragon tail whip. Then, he appeared behind the Xian clan senior elder and charged at him. Bang! 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 A chain of explosions resounded. The battle between the two turned the boundless desert into a scene of desolation. Bottomless pits littered the place. Shao Chen relied on the advantage of his physical body. Without drawing his saber, he clashed with the Xian clan senior elder, not showing any signs of being at a disadvantage. Damn it! The Xian clan senior elder was flustered and exasperated, feeling incredibly frustrated. He had thought that Shao Chen had only sent him flying because he had been careless. When he got serious, killing Shao Chen would be a piece of cake. But when they really fought, he realized that Shao Chen was actually so difficult to deal with. Shao Chen's strong physical body and heavenly sage laws were not much weaker than Shao Chen's. Shao Chen's mysterious movement technique, which allowed him to move like the wind, prevented him from gaining any advantage in speed. As for the various heaven-ranked martial techniques, Shao Chen had a way to deal with them. He did not fear clashing head-on with Shao Chen at all. This made Shao Chen, a bona fide martial sage, feel very sullen. Forced into a corner, the Xian clan's senior elder could only use his trump card, wanting to end the battle in one go. He felt humiliated just thinking about it. A martial sage was actually forced to use his trump card to deal with a half-sage. The 150 heavenly sage laws behind Shao Chen suddenly vanished into thin air. The Xian clan's senior elder waved his hand, and the temperature plummeted. The scorching hot desert actually made people feel a sense of coldness. Xiao Qin smiled faintly. Everything was within his expectations. Despite his advanced age, his cultivation had not improved much. If he did not cultivate 1 or 2 trump cards to protect his life, it would not be right. Xiao Qin had been waiting for this moment. Suddenly, Xiao Qin, who was in the air, narrowed his eyes. He executed the Qing Emperor's drawing the saber. He placed his saber at his waist and grasped its hilt with his right hand. Then, he stepped on the air and quickly headed for the Xian clan's senior elder. The expression of the Xian clan's senior elder suddenly turned startled. Before the Xian clan's senior elder's eyes, Xiao Qin, who was running over, turned into 3, then 6, eventually 80-odd figures. Furthermore, Xiao Qin's figures holding saber hilts were everywhere, all with a pair of cold, emotionless eyes. The Xian clan's senior elder's pupils constricted, and the 80-odd figures turned back into 1. However, the feeling of being watched from all directions felt like prickles on his back. He could not shake it off. What martial technique is this? It is not a cloning technique, drawing the saber, or a mental energy martial technique. Why does it feel completely unfathomable? It is like he can send out 80-odd figures with 1 saber strike. The Xian clan's senior elder could not figure it out no matter how he thought about it. As he watched the approaching Xiao Qin, he felt uncertain. In the end, the Xian clan's senior elder clenched his teeth and stopped executing his trump card. Then, he quickly retreated. A bona fide martial sage was actually frightened by Xiao Qin into giving up on executing his trump card. However, it was clear that the Xian clan's senior elder's decision to give up was the right one. In the next moment, a saber light lit up, an 80-odd saber chi with different trajectories charged at the Xian clan's senior elder. The Xian clan's senior elder barely dodged, narrowly avoiding a few fatal saber chi. However, the non-fatal saber chi inflicted many bloody wounds on his body. Flickering electric light leaped around the wounds, lingering for a long time. Even though the Xian clan's senior elder had a rank 1 sage body, these injuries could not heal that quickly. Xiao Qin sheathed his saber and looked at the Xian clan's senior elder. He said calmly, "Even if you are a martial sage, what can you do to me?" Xiao Qin's words were indifferent. However, they were like thunder rumbling in the Xian clan's senior elder's mind, making him feel sullen, uncomfortable, and helpless. "You are seeking death." The Xian clan's senior elder shouted angrily, and 150 heavenly sage laws instantly entered his body. Then, he revealed his true form and turned into a huge spirit fox charging at Xiao Qin. As the spirit fox ran, the ground trembled continuously. It felt like the sky was going to fall as it burst out with an unparalleled aura. Competing in explosive power. You are not as good as me in that. Xiao Qin smiled coldly and executed deity's descending, tenfold combat prowess of the myriad heaven divine fist. Bang! A surging energy surged out, and the huge spirit fox burst out with a startling might. However, Xiao Qin's punch still knocked it back. When the fiend race revealed their true form, if they were not a spirit fiend, their combat prowess would only increase by 2-fold at best. However, Xiao Qin's deity's descending truly increased his combat prowess by 10-fold. The spirit fox crashed into the ground 10,000 meters away, creating a bottomless pit. Xiao Qin glanced at it and ignored the Xian clan senior elder. He turned around and rushed to misleading Fog Lake. Xiao Qin could not use deities descending continuously. Furthermore, it exhausted a horrifying amount of mental energy. He was destined not to be able to kill this person, so there was no need to waste any more time. However, this person could only dream of doing anything to Xiao Qin. Now, Xiao Qin was no longer like he was in the Sky Dome realm, where any martial sage could deal with him easily. 5 days later, Ao Jiao, that fellow keeps following me. This is not a solution. Don't. Are you thinking of using the strength character formula? Although you can kill that fellow with the strength character formula, you will fall into a deep coma, losing all your combat prowess. any spirit beast will be able to kill you then. Shao Chen rode on the azure dragon on a desolate plain, flying close to the ground. As he moved up and down, he could travel 5 kilometers in an instant. The Xian clan senior elder followed behind unhurriedly. No matter what Shao Chen did, he could not shake him off. Shao Chen thought for a while and could only sigh. The strength character formula was boundlessly profound, containing great might. Once it was used 33 times its combat prowess, anyone of the same generation would die. However, everything in the world had its own heavenly Tao. Naturally, such a heaven-defying martial technique could not be executed so easily. Not only was it draining, but it was also very difficult to comprehend. With Shao Chen's current cultivation, or rather, his horizons, he could only scratch the surface. Shao Chen had a great killing weapon, but he could not kill his enemies to his heart's content. This was a very depressing matter. Ao Jiao smiled gently and said, "It's fine." After he reached Misleading Fog Lake, he would not dare to act rashly. That is a famous forbidden land of the Fiend domain. Even Emperor Wu once went in and got lost in there. How could he, a half-sage, barge in? Shao Chen's expression turned startled. He asked in disbelief, "Is that true?" "Of course it is true. Otherwise, Misleading Fog Lake would not have such an extraordinary reputation. However, don't worry. Back then, the Thunder King already solved the mysteries of it. With my guidance, you will not get lost in there." After obtaining Ao Jiao's confirmation again, Shao Chen relaxed slightly. He glanced at the Xian clan senior elder behind him and continued flying forward at full speed. The Xian clan senior elder, who had an extremely hostile expression, said somewhat suspiciously, "Why does this brat seem to be heading for Misleading Fog Lake? Could it be that he knew that I already used a secret technique to send a message to the main clan of the Silver Moon Spirit Fox?" Knowing that he could not escape death, he simply fled to Misleading Fog Lake. The heir that the Xian clan's clan head had high hopes for was killed just like that. Naturally, this was a shocking matter. The Xian clan senior elder received orders from the clan head to pass on the truth. However, he also hid some things. The Xian clan senior elder was too embarrassed to pass on the fact that Shao Chen, a half-sage, had forced him to the point of being helpless. He only said that Shao Chen had learned a special movement technique. If Shao Chen ran for his life, the Xian clan senior elder would not be able to catch up to him. He asked the clan head to send a few more senior elders to help surround and kill Shao Chen. 10 days later, the Xian clan senior elder saw a white figure standing at the shore of a mysterious lake shrouded in dense fog. Then, he did not hesitate to step in. Misleading Fog Lake is a forbidden land that even Emperor Wu could not leave. He really went in. The horror on the Xian clan senior elder's face could no longer be described with words. He simply could not understand why Shao Chen sought death like that. He clearly could have left easily. The Xian clan senior elder's figure flashed as he approached the lake shrouded in dense fog. He sent out his perception, and his face filled with deep regret. Shao Chen really went in. This way, even if the other Xian clan senior elders rushed over, they would not be able to kill that brat personally. After entering the Misleading Fog Lake, it was hard to escape death. Since ancient times, there had been too many people who overestimated themselves, but no one had ever walked out alive. Some of the curious sovereign martial emperors only dared to go 10 kilometers in before quickly retreating, afraid that they would get lost in there as well. With Shao Chen's strength as a half-sage, he would only die if he went in. There would be no other ending. How unfortunate. I cannot kill that brat personally. It is hard to vent my hatred. In the battle 15 days ago, the Xian clan senior elder had suffered greatly, forced into a sorry state by a half-sage. It would not be an exaggeration to call it the greatest humiliation of his life. It was not that the Xian clan senior elder had never been defeated before. In fact, he had been defeated even more miserably than that battle. However, his opponents were all people of the older generation. Furthermore, their cultivations were much higher than the Xian clan senior elders. He had nothing to say about his defeat. Chapter 771. However, a junior like Xiaochen forced him into such a sorry state was unprecedented. If he did not personally kill Xiaochen, he would not be able to get rid of this heart demon for the rest of his life. Ha ha ha. So, it turns out that you miss Xiaochen so much. In that case, this Xiaochen will give you another punch. There is no need to stand on ceremony. Suddenly, a splash appeared on the lake. Xiaochen leaped out and did not hesitate to send out deities descending. The Xian clan senior elder had not expected such a sudden development. By the time he retreated, that surging energy, a punch with tenfold combat prowess, had already struck his chest. Bang! The Xian clan senior elder vomited a mouthful of blood and went flying back with a pale complexion. He looked at Xiaochen incredulously. It turned out that Xiaochen had not entered the lake at all. He had just stopped at the shore, waiting for the Xian clan senior elder to come over. A punch with tenfold combat prowess already surpassed the might of the Xian clan senior elder's full power strike. This punch struck him while he was caught off guard. This could be said to have truly injured him. The Xian clan senior elder felt so depressed that he wanted to hack Xiaochen into 1,000 pieces. Unexpectedly, Xiaochen made a fool out of him again. You are going too far. This old man will fight it out with you. The Xian clan senior elder roared and charged at Xiaochen like a madman. You want to kill me? Come with me to Misleading Fog Lake. I will wait for you at the center of the lake. Xiaochen felt very happy in his heart. This old fellow had been following him for half a month and had long since disliked him. Now, he finally managed to trick him. Xiaochen laughed loudly and entered the vast fog again. Bang! In the end, reason won over impulse. The Xian clan senior elder stopped midway. If he really followed Xiaochen into this misleading fog lake, he would end up in a miserable state. This time, the Xian clan senior elder did not dare to stand casually at the shore. He waited for 2 days before carefully arriving at the shore. Then, he jumped into the lake. The Xian clan senior elder searched the bottom of the lake before he confirmed that Xiaochen had truly entered the depths of the lake. When the Xian clan senior elder jumped back onto the shore, a group of people was already waiting a kilometer away. The person leading this group looked like he was in his 40s or 50s. However, his aura was withdrawn, and there were more than 300 heavenly sage laws behind him. Furthermore, each one was as thick as a thumb, much stronger than Xiaochen's. Unexpectedly, this person was a peak inferior grade martial sage. There were actually 2 martial sages among the 40 or 50 people standing behind him. The clothes they wore were exactly the same as the Xian clan senior elders. When the clan senior Xian of the Chen of the Xian of the clan, he was, of, he, Chen, a Chen, of the of Zof the Chen, and of it his, of Shao of his, of the Chen, of the clan, of out of the Chen of. Xian Feng, the day before yesterday, you sent word that the person who killed Xian Yu had already entered deep into Misleading Fog Lake. Xian Ku did not answer Xian Feng's question directly. He only frowned as he looked at the mysterious Misleading Fog Lake, which was always shrouded in fog. He entered deep thought. Xian Feng lowered his head and answered, "It is absolutely true. I chased this brat for 15 days and nights. In the end, he had nowhere else to run and entered this Misleading Fog Lake." Ha! Xian Feng, you are really capable. Even after chasing a half-sage for half a month, you still could not catch him, a Xian clan senior elder mocked behind Xian Ku. Xian Feng felt a slight pain in his chest. He wanted to retort, but he felt too guilty. He lowered his head and did not dare to say anything. Carefully, he asked Xian Ku, "First elder, what did the clan head say?" Xian Ku thought for a while, not paying much attention to this. He said, "Did that person barge into this place by mistake or on purpose?" Xian Feng, are you sure? He should have barged in by mistake. He is not from my fiend domain. He probably has not heard of the strangeness of misleading Fog Lake. If he barged in by mistake, then never mind. Just stand guard here for 3 months. If he comes out, just kill him. If he doesn't, then forget it. After Xian Ku spoke, he glanced at the fog-covered misleading Fog Lake. Then, he stood up and left. As the Xian clan's first elder, he had many matters to attend to. Naturally, he could not waste 3 months on a half-sage who barged into misleading Fog Lake by mistake. Seeing the first elder leave, Xian Feng heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the first elder was only here to go through the motions. Otherwise, he would have been afraid that he would have revealed his secret. Aside from the thick fog, the water of misleading Fog Lake looked no different from any other lake. It was clear and transparent. When one looked down, one would see the shadows of fish swimming around. However, the fog above the lake disturbed the tranquility of the lake. After Xiaoqin stepped in for a kilometer, he became completely lost. Even when Xiaoqin infused quintessence into his eyes, he could not see beyond 100 meters. When he extended his spiritual sense, it became hazy after 500 meters. What was even more horrifying was that there was no sense of direction in there. This sense of direction was not limited to a flat surface. Even if one tried to fly upwards with all their might, it would appear that they were flying upwards. However, after a while, they would strangely land back on the lake. As for swimming to the depths of the water, it was even more dangerous. Perhaps after you swam down for 1,000 meters, you wouldn't be able to survive. Perhaps after swimming for a kilometer, one would discover that one could not float up no matter how one swam. One would keep spinning in the water, suffocating to death. This misleading Fog Lake did not have any strong ferocious beasts, traps, or formations. Furthermore, it did not have any natural disasters that could destroy the world. It only blurred one's 5 senses, rendering one's overwhelming abilities useless, grinding one to death in there. Now, Xiaoqin was somewhat curious about how the Thunder King managed to get out of this place back then. According to Ao Jiao, when the Thunder King barged into this place, he had not advanced to Martial Emperor yet. He had only just broken through to Martial Sage. In the depths of this misleading Fog Lake, there is a bolt of divine lightning. That is the true divine lightning. Even at his peak, the Thunder King could not bring out even 1/10 of it. Back then, the Thunder King was trapped here. Coincidentally, he reached the bottleneck of comprehending a will, so he started cultivating here. He sensed the existence of the divine lightning, which allowed him to reach the depths of misleading Fog Lake. In the end, he broke through the bottleneck in one go, becoming the only cultivator in the past 10,000 years to comprehend a will before the age of 25, successfully walking out of misleading Fog Lake. Ao Jiao told Xiaoqin everything that happened back then, answering many of his questions. Divine lightning, even at his peak, the Thunder King could not bring out even 1/10 of its might. What kind of lightning was that? Xiaoqin could not help but feel very interested. At his peak, the Thunder King was a sovereign martial emperor. Just one bolt of lightning equaled 10 sovereign martial emperors. In that case, how strong was the master of that bolt of divine lightning? It completely surpassed Xiaoqian's imagination. This was truly incredible. There were strong sovereign martial emperors and weak sovereign martial emperors. However, there would not be much of a difference. In the martial epoch, sovereign martial emperor was synonymous with the peak of cultivators. As for martial gods, they had been a legend for tens of thousands of years. Even the strongest sovereign martial emperor since the ancient era, the Qing Emperor, was only a sovereign martial emperor and not a martial god. Most of the legends about martial gods came from the ancient era. That was when martial emperors were as common as clouds and sages roamed the land. It was the golden age of the martial epoch. In the end, legends were just legends. Sovereign martial emperors could live for 10,000 years. Martial gods should be eternal. However, the reality was that several strong sovereign martial emperors from the ancient era had their bloodlines passed down. Even now, they did not go extinct and were revered as sovereign noble clans. As for several of the legendary martial gods, not to mention their bloodlines, they did not even leave behind their inheritances. This made many later generations believe that martial god was just a figment of their imagination and did not exist at all. Now, Ao Jiao said that one bolt of divine lightning equaled 10 sovereign martial emperors. In that case, could the master of the divine lightning be a martial god? At this moment, Xiaoqin could not help but feel excited. He urged Ao Jiao to quickly lead the way. Don't rush. It has been more than 2,000 years. The connection between me and that bolt of divine lightning is already somewhat weak. I need some time. After waiting for a long time, Ao Jiao turned into a beam of light and flew out from the immortal spirit ring. In the depths of Ao Jiao's intelligent eyes was a spot of golden electric light drifting about like a flame. That spot of electric fire was only several times the size of a grain of rice. However, it gave off a soul-stirring light, deterring others from looking directly at it. Ao Jiao revealed an extremely grave expression on her cute and petite face. Her gaze slowly moved around the surroundings, occasionally revealing a confused expression. When Xiaoqin saw this scene, he frowned slightly. It looked like this misleading fog lake was not as easy as Ao Jiao said. However, Xiaoqin was not a rash person. His mental state was much calmer than that of his peers. He did not show any panic on his face, nor did he say anything to disturb Ao Jiao. Time passed slowly. The surrounding fog did not weaken at all. At a glance, all Xiaoqin saw was a vast expanse of white. He could not tell north from south at all. The fog did not look strange. When Xiaoqin collected some, he did not find anything wrong with it. That was to say, the strangeness of this place had nothing to do with this vast fog. The crucial thing was that the divine lightning had clouded the 5 senses. If not for the fortuitous encounter like the Thunder Kings, a sovereign martial emperor would not have been able to leave. Boom! Just as Xiaoqian's thoughts ran wild, a strong wind suddenly blew. The thick fog in front of Ao Jiao parted, revealing a clear path. The 2 undetectable spots of golden electric light in Ao Jiao's eyes suddenly turned into clumps of blazing flames, giving off a resplendent and dazzling light. With a thought, Xiaoqin quickly followed behind Ao Jiao, moving quickly on the water. It was like there was a formless energy guiding Ao Jiao. The fog in front of her automatically parted as she moved forward. After she crossed it, it immediately closed up again. When one looked back, it was still a vast and boundless fog that stretched for an unknown distance. This was truly inconceivable. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaoqin felt that they had already advanced at least 150 kilometers. However, Ao Jiao still showed no signs of stopping. We've arrived. Suddenly, Ao Jiao stopped. Right after she spoke, Xiaoqin discovered that the surrounding fog had vanished at some point in time. The scene before Xiaoqin turned into a golden world. Not only was the lake under his feet golden, but the surrounding air and the vast sky were also pure gold. Chapter 772. The sudden change caused Xiaoqian's eyes to be somewhat stimulated. His vision blurred, and he could not help but squint. In the middle of the lake, there was a ball of golden lightning floating 1,000 meters above the lake. The golden radiance was emitted from it, and then the entire world was dyed golden from the inside out. This was the divine lightning that Ao Jiao spoke of. Xiaoqin could feel the energy contained in the electric light. It was like a boundless sea, vast and boundless. However, at this moment, it seemed very gentle. The entire world gave off a sense of tranquility. Xiaoqin glanced at Ao Jiao beside him and could not help but be startled. Ao Jiao's exquisite and charming body had actually turned completely golden. Her skin, eyes, hair, and clothes were all golden. However, this golden color seemed very lively, making one feel that she was not an inanimate object. How did you become like this? Ao Jiao giggled and said, "In my eyes, you are like this too." Xiaoqin raised his hand and looked. Indeed, he had become like Ao Jiao, covered in a layer of golden light from the inside out. It was extremely strange. Xiaoqin did not know if he could recover. If he remained like this for the rest of his life, he would not be used to it. Ao Jiao could tell what Xiao Chen was worried about. She smiled and said, "Don't worry. This is its domain. After you entered, you were all assimilated. You will be fine once you leave. You can try cultivating and see if there are any unexpected effects." Xiao Chen did as he was told. He sat cross-legged on the golden lake and closed his eyes to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. After a while, he opened his eyes and said in pleasant surprise, "This place is filled with the purest lightning-attributed spiritual energy. Cultivating here is at least 10 times faster than cultivating outside." Ao Jiao nodded and said, "With your talent, you will definitely be able to break through to martial sage in less than 3 years. When you advance to martial sage, the more quintessence you have, the more heavenly sage laws you will be able to convert." Xiao Chen asked about what he was most concerned about. Then, "What should I do to make my state of thunder break through to the will of thunder?" Ao Jiao shook her head and said, "I don't know. The Thunder King comprehended his will here, but how exactly did he comprehend it? Only he himself knew, and he couldn't tell anyone else. Everyone's situation is different, and the experiences of others may not apply to you. To you, this place is just a fortuitous encounter. However, you will still have to rely on your own comprehension to make a breakthrough." Xiao Chen was stunned at first, but he soon understood. He smiled and said, "To comprehend a will, one needs talent, accumulation, and fortuitous encounters. The first two are easy to achieve, but the latter is hard to come by. I don't know how many geniuses are stuck at the bottleneck of fortuitous encounters. Since I have such an opportunity, I should learn to be satisfied. Do your best and leave the rest to the heavens. If you fail, you will have no regrets as long as you do your best." Ao Jiao smiled softly and said, "You have already comprehended the state of thunder to the limit. You have already accumulated enough. The fact that you comprehended the immortal state at Thunder Emperor Valley is sufficient proof of your talent. You already have sufficient talent and accumulation. Now that the fortuitous encounter has arrived, you will be able to form the immortal will of thunder in the near future." Xiao Chen smiled faintly and said, "I'll be counting on your auspicious words. Comprehend it well. I also want to make use of this opportunity to raise my strength." Ao Jiao nodded, and her body slowly sank to the bottom of the lake. Ripples spread out, and she completely vanished, leaving behind the most peaceful environment for Xiao Chen. When Xiao Chen saw this scene, he could not help but shake his head and smile bitterly. "This girl, you can just cultivate here. It is not like you are in my way." Xiao Chen looked deeply at the divine lightning floating a kilometer above the center of the lake. Then, he entered deep thought. Logically speaking, given the might of the divine lightning, he should have been electrocuted into nothingness long ago, even if he did not do anything, given how close he was to it. However, the divine lightning before Xiao Chen clearly possessed an incomparably vast energy. However, it remained gentle and calm, not showing the berserk nature of lightning. In nature, all sorts of states were ever-changing. Wind had gentle winds, cool winds, and strong winds. Fire had warm flames, slow flames, yin flames, and blazing flames. Water had flood waters, brook waters, and clear waters. Only lightning was not so ever-changing. Even the weakest lightning bolt could easily strike an ordinary person to death. It would not be gentle at all. Its might shook the heavens, it was decisive, and it dispersed with one strike. This was lightning. Xiao Chen had never seen such gentle lightning before. After thinking for a while, he found it very strange. After hesitating for a while, he gathered his courage and flew towards the divine lightning. Xiao Chen's figure flashed as he slowly approached. As he got closer, the feeling of vastness intensified. It was like he was embracing a boundless sea. Before this boundless energy, Xiao Chen's state of thunder was so insignificant that it was negligible. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Xiao Chen arrived before the divine lightning. When he looked carefully, he discovered that the clump of light looked like a thick eggshell protecting something. Could the true divine lightning be in there? Xiao Chen frowned and thought hard. If that was the case, wouldn't he have to break the clump of light before he could see the divine lightning? Xiao Chen's state of thunder had already reached its limits long ago. All he needed was an opportunity to break through that bottleneck. Then, he would be able to form his will. The divine lightning was Xiao Chen's opportunity. If he tried to comprehend the divine lightning through a barrier, the effects would be much weaker. However, the danger of breaking the barrier was unpredictable. The possibility of it killing him in one exchange was very high. Should I break it or not? Break it. Xiao Chen felt conflicted. He clenched his teeth and resolutely made a decision. He had to break it. As long as he could increase his chances of comprehending the will of thunder, the risk was worth it. However, he still needed to be cautious. He retreated 1 kilometer and circulated the heavenly sage laws in his body. Strands of pure lightning attributed quintessence poured into his fingertips like a river. Qi. Qi. The purple lightning attributed quintessence condensed into a beam of light and shot at the eggshell-like clump of light in front. Contrary to Xiao Chen's expectations, the clump of light was easier to break than he expected. It instantly tore a finger-sized hole in it, and a strand of golden lightning surged out. Everywhere it passed, it tore the incredibly tough space of the Kunlun realm in half, forming long black cracks that looked as if they were one. Xiao Chen had been prepared long ago. When he shot out that purple beam of light, he quickly dodged, brushing past the golden lightning. The afterimage left in the air was directly cut in half along with the black crack in space. Xiao Chen sucked in a breath of cold air and felt a chill run down his spine. His heart pounded heavily. Had he been slower by even a fraction of a second, his physical body would have been torn in half. Legend had it that Emperor Wu's physical body could withstand the destructive force of the shattering of space. Aside from that, only some spirit beasts at the peak of the food chain could block spatial tears. However, no matter what kind of physical body it was, Xiao Chen was worlds apart from it. An inconspicuous crack could easily tear him to shreds. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and looked at the hole. Then, his spiritual sense turned into a thin line and quickly entered. The scene he saw stunned him. This clump of light actually contained a small world that was tens of millions of kilometers wide. It was a chaotic, pitch-black space. In the very depths, Xiao Chen saw thousands upon thousands of berserk bolts of lightning roaring furiously. The bolts of golden lightning were actually filled with spirituality, turning into berserk dragons. As they roared and leaped about, they radiated a power that could shatter mountains and dry up rivers. The bolt of lightning that tore space earlier was just an ordinary bolt of lightning that came from the depths of the small world. After traveling for tens of millions of kilometers, its might had decreased. If the surrounding dragons had any destructive power, the entire misleading fog lake would have been reduced to rubble in an instant. Now, Xiao Chen finally understood why Ao Jiao said that even when the Thunder King was at his peak, the lightning he executed was only a tenth of the might of this divine lightning. If it was only a tenth, Xiao Chen felt that Ao Jiao was being overconfident. The surrounding dragon-shaped lightning is definitely not the true body of this divine lightning. It is just an electric light that was casually emitted. I have to see exactly what this divine lightning looks like. Xiao Chen carefully controlled his spiritual sense to fly forward. In an instant, his spiritual sense had traveled 500 kilometers. Such a strange speed in the small world astonished Xiao Chen. As his spiritual sense flew, he could even clearly feel the flow of time. Ka-Xie. A random bolt of lightning crashed into Xiao Chen's spiritual sense. In that instant, his spiritual sense turned to ashes, and the scene in his mind vanished. Xiao Chen's pupils constricted. The hole in the clump of light earlier was already slowly closing. His spiritual sense no longer had a chance to enter. Without hesitation, Xiao Chen pointed with his finger and tore another hole. Then, in the time it took for a spark to fly, he dodged the golden lightning that shot out from it. This repeated over and over again. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense went in again and again, and again and again. He got closer and closer to the divine lightning at the core of the small world. The golden lightning that shot out was like the Grim Reaper's scythe, brushing past Xiao Chen again and again. Even with Xiao Chen's strong mental fortitude, he could not help but break out in a cold sweat. If he was careless, he would lose his life here. Xiao Chen did not know how many times his spiritual sense went in. Finally, he passed through the dragon-shaped lightning and saw the true body of the divine lightning. However, how was this divine lightning? It was clearly a talisman, a supreme lightning talisman. The immortal patterns flowing on it, the traces of strokes, and the strands of immortal chi emanating from the talisman all showed that this was an immortal-grade lightning talisman. It was exactly the same as the introduction of talismans in the Compendium of Cultivation. However, the grade of this talisman was too high, completely surpassing the level of talismans in the Compendium of Cultivation. Xiao Chen did not know what grade this talisman was. Sage grade, immortal grade, or divine grade. With just one look, the golden lightning talisman's shape was deeply imprinted in Xiao Chen's mind. It was like a bolt of lightning had blown open his closed thoughts, opening him up. Xiao Chen felt like he understood something. He quickly withdrew his spiritual sense and absorbed the shocking scene he just saw. The surging mental energy in his sea of consciousness started to surge. Xiao Chen started to imitate that supreme talisman according to his memory.